I never thought I'd be the kind of person to visit Disneyland alone. My little sister Emily always wanted to go there, but that day never came. A drunk driver took her life last December. She was only 9. I still remember the phone call, the sirens, the sterile smell of the hospital room. I didn't cry at first. I just stopped feeling altogether. But when I found her old bucket list written on the back of her school notebook, I saw "Go to Disneyland" scribbled right at the top, so I decided I'd go for her. It was a sunny afternoon when I arrived, and everything looked exactly like how she'd imagined it. Music playing, kids laughing, balloons bobbing against the sky. I wandered aimlessly. Every smile I saw reminded me of what I'd lost. I sat near the fountain outside Fantasyland, eating a churro, murmuring to the wind, "It's all for you, Emily." I was drowning in my despair when noticed a man standing near the carousel. He was this tall, lanky dude with stringy hair. He was pretending to check his phone, but he wasn't looking at the screen. His eyes were locked on a little girl. She couldn't have been older than 8. She skipped around, laughing, while her parents pushed a stroller a few feet away. The man started following them, slowly, deliberately blending into the crowd. Every time the girl turned, he looked away, pretending to take photos or adjust his hat. A chill crawled up my spine. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. People look weird all the time. Maybe he was just waiting for someone. A few minutes later, I looked back again, and this time, I saw the man talking to the girl holding out a popsicle. I was too far to hear what he said, but I could tell from the way the girl was interested in whatever he said to her. Her parents were distracted, trying to calm the baby. It's none of my business, I told myself. There are cameras, security, people everywhere. But then, I watched him quickly grant her wrist and started walking away. Once the girl realized the man was taking her away from her parents, she started crying, but the music and chaos suppressed her voice. Her cries just dissolved into the noise. He started dragging her toward the side path behind the Dumbo ride. I was sure now that the man had bad intentions. Before disappearing behind the ride, I saw the little girl's face, her eyes wide, tears streaming, her small hand reaching out as she shouted for help. And in that split second, I saw Emily. The same desperate eyes she must have had the time of the accident, calling for someone who never came in time. Something inside me snapped. I got up and ran, faster than I ever had in my life. My heart pounded like a drum in my ears. I didn't even think, just shoved past people, knocking into them. When I reached the corner, I saw the man again, pinning the little girl against a wall. His belt was half undone. His face had changed from calm to something ominous. For a moment, I froze. Every cell in my body screamed in rage. Then, the girl whimpered,
"Please don't hurt me."
And all I saw was Emily again, sitting on her bed, asking me to promise she'd be safe when she grew up. I couldn't stand still anymore. I lunged on the freak. The man turned, surprised, just as I slammed into him. We both hit the ground hard. I don't remember what I said, just the sound of fists, the taste of blood in my mouth. I punched him until my knuckles bruised. He tried to fight back, but rage and grief had made me stronger than I'd ever been. I screamed at him, words that didn't even make sense. All I knew was that this monster wasn't going to hurt her. Not today. Not ever. By the time security arrived, he was lying half-conscious, gasping, his face unrecognizable. The guards pulled me off him, shouting questions I couldn't process. The little girl ran to one of them, sobbing. I was shaking, covered in sweat and dust. My hands were trembling so hard I had to press them against my knees to keep them still. Later, when everything calmed down, one of the guards led the girl towards me. She had band-aids on her knees, and her pink backpack was ripped. She looked up at me with these big, grateful eyes, the same color as Emily's. Then, she reached out and grabbed my hand.
"Thank you,"
she whispered. I didn't even know what to say. I just knelt down so we were eye level. "You're safe now," I managed to choke out. She suddenly hugged me, tight, like she was afraid to let go. And something broke inside me. I felt warmth on my cheeks and realized I was crying. Not the quiet kind of crying, the shattered, shaking kind. Months of guilt and pain spilling out at once. I held her like she was my own sister. Like maybe, by saving her, I'd finally done what I couldn't do for Emily. When the police took the man away, one of the officers patted my shoulder. "You did good, son," he said, but I barely heard him, because in the distance, through the crowd and lights, I thought I saw something. A tiny figure standing near the carousel, wearing a white dress and Minnie Mouse ears. For a second, I saw Emily. She smiled at me, and then she was gone. I don't know if it was real or just my imagination, but I felt her there, in the laughter of the kids, in the breeze that carried the scent of cotton candy. At night, as fireworks exploded over the castle, I sat on a bench. Tears fell, but they didn't hurt anyone. Somewhere beyond the lights and stars, I knew she was smiling, proud that her big brother had finally found the courage to be her hero, even if it came a little too late. And for the first time since she died, I smiled back.
I've been doing nature photography for 8 years, and I've seen my fair share of weird shit in the woods, ranging from bears that nearly got my head, coyotes that chased me for miles, and once a mountain lion that was a centimeter away from making me his lunch. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for what I had escaped that day. It was pretty cold that day. I'd hiked 3 miles into the state forest before sunrise, trying to catch the light hitting the snow just right. My editor wanted pristine winter wilderness shots for some outdoors magazine spread, so here I was, voluntarily freezing my ass off. I found a good spot overlooking the small clearing and set up my tripod. The sun was starting to come, washing everything in pink and gold. I was lining up my shot when I saw movement at the edge of the clearing. At first, I thought it was some animal, but when I squinted a bit, I realized it was a person. A woman, to be specific. She was crouched over something in the snow, draped in a tattered animal hide that reeked of blood and rot. Her hair hung down in these long, matted tangles with frost clinging to it, and she was barefoot. I was about to call out and ask if she needed help, but the words stuck in my throat when I saw she was crouched over a deer. The deer was dead. The poor thing's throat was torn wide, staining the snow beneath him crimson. The woman was bent over it, with her face buried in the wound, and she made these wet, sucking noises, like she was trying to drink it dry. My stomach dropped the moment she lifted her head, revealing a face smeared with blood and meat that ran down her neck. Her skin was pale as a corpse, and where her eyes should have been, there were just these glistening red hollow sockets, like something had eaten them out. I watched in horror as she reached into her dress and pulled out these little carved bones strung together on a long braid that looked like it had been ripped straight from a woman's head. She laid them out in the snow around the deer in a particular pattern, wobbling around in a way that made my skin crawl. Once done, she started chanting in a deep, guttural, rasping sound that was nowhere near human. The words sounded foreign, like ancient hymns. She dipped her fingers in the blood and started drawing symbols in the snow, spirals and lines and shapes hurt to look at. Her chanting got louder by the minute, until it bounced through the trees. I should have run, gotten the hell out the second I saw her, but I realized I didn't want to get away from her. The more she chanted, the stronger the pull became, until resisting became impossible. I took a step forward, and a twig snapped under my foot. Her head immediately turned to me. Even from 30 feet away, her eyes locked onto mine, and her mouth stretched into a grin far too wide for her face. For a heartbeat, we just stared. Then, she let out a guttural, animalistic scream that shattered whatever trance I'd been under. In 2 seconds, she was on all fours and crawling towards me like a jungle cat. I blinked, grabbed my camera, and bolted, crashing through the trees as fast as I could. Behind me, I could hear her scrambling and the sickening scrape of hands and feet on snow. Every time I risked a glance back, she was closer, moving through the snow faster than any human should be able to move. Branches whipped my face as I tore through the trees. Still, I ran blindly. Suddenly, I tripped over a hidden root and went rolling through the snow. The camera flew out of my palms, but it was the last thing on my mind. She was leaping from branch to branch now, swinging like some insane animal, landing with a sickening thud right where I had been seconds before. I kept rolling down the slope. Snow filled my mouth and eyes. My lungs burned from the cold. My head spun so bad I thought I'd never breathe again. Then, somehow, the momentum threw me onto the main trail, right as 2 hikers appeared. They were a couple, bundled in coats, walking sticks in hand. When they saw me, their eyes widened in concern.
Oh my God! Are you okay?
The woman asked, helping me to my feet. I spun around and pointed at the woods behind me. She was... Blood was running down my face from where the branches had cut me, and I was shaking like a dried leaf.
Oh, we should call someone.
The woman said, pulling out her phone. I looked back at the woods again, and immediately saw a pale silhouette standing motionless between 2 pine trees, maybe 50 yards in. She was watching me, with that grin still stretched across her blood-stained face. Then, she turned and disappeared into the shadows. I told the hikers that I'm fine. I didn't want to make it a big deal because I was unsure of my mind. I left my camera, my tripod, my gear bag, basically everything. I walked straight to my car and drove home. I thought that was the end of it, but 2 days ago I saw a strange case in the news. The discovery of a college student's body occurred in the same area where I met the hikers down the slope. The cop had said he was on a solo camping trip. He had many bruises and disturbing biting marks on his legs and arms. It seemed like some wild animal killing, but strangely, the teeth marks on his body came out human in the autopsy report. The police suggested that a deranged person has taken shelter in those woods. Maybe that person even has taste for human meat, because authorities are clueless that what kind of a person bites off the tongue of a 19-year-old. I thought of calling the cops and sharing what I saw that day, but I'm afraid they won't believe me and will start suspecting me. What should I do? Still pissing your pants over Granny's spooky bedtime tales? June asked as we walked through the entrance gates. It was just another Thanksgiving night, and June and I were sneaking out to the Turkey Hollow Fair like we had done every year since middle school. The fair was lit up with orange and yellow lights, fake autumn leaves, and the smell of fried dough mixing with the cold November air. Shut up, I muttered, but my stomach was already tight with unease. The theme this year was honoring local legends. Every booth had some cheesy decoration about the town's history. When we passed the food stalls, June stopped and started laughing. Dude, check it out. He pointed at the next booth. There was a broken animatronic butcher drenched in fake blood. He had a cleaver hung overhead, jerking back and forth, with a painted smile fixed on its face. June laughed, but I couldn't. My grandmother's voice was in my head, reciting the same story she told me every Thanksgiving since I was 8. Back in the day, there was a village butcher named Old Ben. One Thanksgiving, he slaughtered his whole family, carved them up, and cooked their flesh into the feast. People didn't realize what they had eaten until it was too late. By then, Ben had vanished into the woods, never to be found again. June grabbed a stick of turkey jerky from the booth. Want some of Old Ben's special recipe? You're disgusting. We wandered around for another hour, hitting the rides and wasting money on rigged carnival games. By midnight, most families had cleared out, except for the teenagers and drunk adults stumbling. Want to check out the woods? What? Why? Come on, don't be boring. I want to see if old Ben's actually out there. The woods started about 50 yards past the last booth. The fair lights didn't reach that far. The second we crossed the tree line, it felt like stepping into a cave. This is stupid, I grumbled, letting my phone's flashlight punch through the darkness. Let's head back. Just a little further, June said. All I could hear were the crickets, dry leaves, and our boots crunching on twigs. As we rounded the oak tree, a whistling crept into the ears. It was faint, off-key, and sounded like a ghost was trying to recall a forgotten lullaby. Heard that? I whispered. June stopped, scanning the trees. We waited for a couple of seconds, waiting for something to happen. When it didn't, we resumed walking. We'd barely taken a couple of steps when the whistling resumed, getting louder by the minute. Dude, that's enough. Let's head back. I gulped. June agreed. We turned around and nearly shit our pants. A man was standing beside the thickest oak tree about 20 feet ahead. His face was unnaturally pale, almost gray in the moonlight. His clothes were dark and soaked with fresh blood that was dripping on the ground. His right hand clutched a butcher's knife, and on his left, he dragged a human leg, severed clean at the thigh, still slick with blood. Flesh showed where the skin had torn and mingled with the dirt, leaving a dark, wet trail behind him. The moment his eyes met ours, we screamed and bolted, never once looking over my shoulder, even though I couldn't see anything ahead. My phone was lost somewhere, and I kept crashing through branches, tripping over roots. The woods seemed endless. Trees loomed out of nowhere, brambles tearing at our clothes and skin. I could hear his quick footsteps behind. He was still whistling, getting closer. That horrible dragging sound never stopped, mixing with the whistling. This way! June grabbed my arm and pulled me left. We burst through a bush and found ourselves on a narrow path I didn't recognize. I glanced back, and he was right there, maybe 15 feet behind us. His face was clearer now in patches of moonlight. His skin was pulled too tight over his skull. Eyes were bulging like they would jump out of his sockets. Run! June screamed. My lungs were on fire, and my legs felt like they were about to give out. June was faster, pulling ahead. For a horrible second, I thought he was going to leave me. I turned back and saw the man had dropped a leg on the ground. Oh no, he was going to run now. I pushed harder than I'd ever pushed in my life. Branches whipped across my face. My ankle rolled on a root, but somehow I stayed upright. I could hear him breathing right behind me and could smell copper mixed with something rotten. There! June pointed ahead. We were close to the fairgrounds. As we kept running, impossibly strong fingers grabbed the back of my jacket, yanking me backward. I twisted out of the jacket, heard it rip, and threw myself forward. Adrenaline pumped in my veins as I burst out of the tree line into the fair's back lot. People were still around. Carnies broke down booths, and a few stragglers were headed to their cars. I turned around, gasping, expecting to see him emerge from the woods, but he didn't. Did you see? June was doubled over, hands on his knees, face white as paper. He almost got me. We stood there for a long while, staring at the tree line. Several carnies walked past without even glancing our way. My jacket was gone. My arms were covered in scratches. June's shirt was torn, and he had a cut above his eye bleeding down his face. We need to call the cops, I said. And tell them what? And we saw old Ben in the woods with a human leg? We ended up calling the cops, but they didn't take us seriously. Said we were drunk, making up stories. Told us to stop wasting their time and go home. But we know what we saw and survived. Old Ben isn't a legend. He's out there in those woods, waiting for his next victim. The storm hit around midnight, making the McDonald's sign flicker and the windows rattle. I was working drive-thru, which meant wearing that stupid headset and pretending to be cheerful. Night shifts usually weren't that dead, but the storm had scared everyone off. I was wiping down the drink station when the headset beeped. "Welcome to McDonald's. What can I get for you?" Static crackled through the line before a male voice came through, sounding like someone was calling from a pool bottom. "Medium fries, vanilla shake." "All right, pull around to the first window." I glanced at the drive-through camera monitor, but couldn't spot a car or a headlight. It was just the empty lot and the speaker box getting hammered by the downpour. Sir? Are you still there?" I waited about 30 seconds, then pressed the button again. "Sir, if you're having trouble with your car..." The headset beeped. "Medium fries, vanilla shake," he repeated. I checked the camera again, but still couldn't spot him. "Sarah?" I called my manager. "The drive-through camera's acting weird. Someone keeps ordering, but I can't see him." Sarah came over and squinted at the monitor.
Probably storm interference. Go check on them.
I grabbed an umbrella and pushed through the side door. The rain soaked me immediately. Outside, the parking lot was empty, except for our 2 cars. I walked around to the drive-through lane. Suddenly, I spotted tire marks. They looked fresh, cutting through the puddles and leading from the speaker box toward the back of the lot. But they didn't curve toward the pickup window like they should have. Instead, they went straight back, past the dumpsters, all the way to the woods behind the store. Like the car had driven straight into the darkness and vanished. I paused for a second, but couldn't help to ignore the marks. I followed them deeper into the woods. A pair of headlights flickered through the branches, barely visible through the rain and trees. There was a silver sedan wrapped around a massive tree trunk. The entire front end had crumpled like a tin can. Steam rose from what was left of the engine, and the windshield looked like a spiderweb of cracks. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and turned on the flashlight. The driver was still in his seat, slumped sideways against the door, eyes closed, wearing a business suit that was completely soaked with blood. The entire left side of his skull had caved in. Bone fragments stuck out at angles that made my stomach turn, and I could see brain matter through the matted hair and split skin. He was sitting in the pool of his own blood. His jaw hung loose, barely attached by strips of tissue. "Jesus Christ," I whispered, stumbling backward. My hands shook, and I could hear my heartbeat in my ear. Before I could call 911, the headlights flared to life, nearly blinding me as if someone inside had just flipped them to high beams. Then, a voice hissed right into my ear, so close I felt cold breath on my neck. "You forgot my order." I spun around, but couldn't see anyone behind me except for trees and rain and darkness. When I looked back at the car, the dead man was sitting upright, with his eyes wide open, staring straight at me through the broken windshield, while blood continued to drip from his ruined skull. It felt as if he was neither dead nor alive. I ran through the woods, panting in fear and shock. I didn't stop until I burst through the McDonald's back door and slammed it shut. I told the manager everything. Sarah made the call while I stood by the locked door, staring out into the darkness. The police showed up about 15 minutes later with paramedics and a fire truck. I led them back into the woods, though every part of me wanted to stay inside where it was bright and safe. The car was exactly where I'd left it, still wrapped around that tree, but the headlights were dim again now. The horn had stopped. The driver was slumped sideways against the door, eyes closed, exactly like I'd first found him. One of the paramedics checked for a pulse and shook his head. "He's gone. Been dead at least 4 hours, maybe longer." 4 hours? My voice came out higher than I wanted. "But I heard him. He talked to me." "Son, based on the damage and the body temperature, he probably hit that tree around 8 o'clock tonight." The cop shrugged. "But the headlights came on." "Electrical short from the crash," he explained, walking around the wreck. "Happens sometimes. Battery's still got some juice in it. Makes the lights flicker on and off randomly." I insisted I had talked to him,
but they all looked at me like I'd lost my mind and went back taking photos and measurements, then finally loaded the body onto a stretcher. I watched them zip him into a black body bag, and the last thing I saw was his ruined face disappearing behind the plastic. The cop came over and told me the guy's name was Robert James, 42 years old, insurance salesman from Seattle. He'd been driving through when the storm hit, probably lost control on the wet roads and ended up in our woods. They said it happens more often than people think. Nobody had heard the crash because of the thunder. Nobody knew he was out there until I found him. I quit the next day. Told them I was going back to school, needed to focus on classes, whatever excuse came to mind that didn't make me sound crazy. But I know what I saw, what I heard. Sometimes now, late at night when it's raining hard, I hear that voice in my head. It was Thanksgiving morning when I was 12. As our family tradition had it, my dad and I had claimed our usual spot on Main Street for the parade. The marching band was warming up, tubas honked, little kids waved foam fingers. That's when I first noticed this guy standing across the street. He was maybe 30 feet away, wearing this brown jacket with the sleeves rolled up even though it was freezing. His forearms were covered in burn scars that were lined up, like someone had pressed hot coins into his skin one by one. Still, that wasn't even the worst part. It was the intensity in his eyes, and he was staring directly at me.
That weird guy over there is staring at me.
I grabbed my dad's arm. Dad looked up from his phone. What guy? I pointed across the street, but he had vanished into the crowd.
He was right there.
Dad shrugged. It's parade day, sweetie. Lots of weird people out today. I scanned the crowd again, but couldn't find him. The parade started, and I tried to focus on the dancers spinning past and the floats covered in fake turkeys, but I had this feeling like someone was watching me through a window I couldn't see. Just then, Dad's phone rang. It's work, he said, stepping away toward the quieter side of the street. I stayed put, surrounded by people, but suddenly feeling completely alone. As the music got louder, someone in a turkey costume waddled past, high-fiving kids. I was watching a little girl chase after him when someone tapped my shoulder. I turned around, and my heart stopped. He was inches away from my face, eyes locked onto mine and up close. I could see his pupils were different sizes. One was huge, swallowing almost all the color. The other was tiny, just a pinprick. I've got something for you, he whispered, leaning even closer.
I don't want it.
I answered, trying to back away. He smiled, flashing his blunt and uneven teeth. Yes, you do, he whispered. Before I could process, his hand clamped around my wrist as he yanked me backward into the crowd. His skin was ice cold, and those burn scars felt hard and raised under my fingers.
Dad!
I screamed, but a float rolled past with speakers blasting, and my voice disappeared into the drums and trumpets. I dug in, but he was stronger. He dragged me through the crowd like it was nothing. People brushed past, bumped into us, and didn't even look twice. To them, we probably looked like a dad hauling his kid out of a meltdown. Stop fighting, he snapped. You're making it worse for yourself. We hit the alley between the hardware store and the barber shop. He slammed me into the brick so hard my teeth snapped together, and I tasted blood. The parade was 50 feet away. I could see people laughing, tossing kettle corn, and snapping photos, but they couldn't see me in the dark gap between buildings. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a butterscotch candy wrapped in cellophane. Eat it, and you can see the others, he said, holding it up to my face.
Let me go!
I sobbed. His face spasmed, like something underneath his skin was trying to get out. Eat it. He loomed over. They all do. That's the rule.
He grabbed my face with his free hand. His fingers dug into my cheeks until I felt them scraping against my teeth from the outside and forced my jaw open. The candy pressed against my lips, and I could taste the cellophane dissolving. I thrashed and kicked. My heel connected with his shin. He grunted but didn't let go. I bit down on his finger and tasted blood, but he actually laughed and shoved the candy deeper into my mouth. I was choking on it. The wrapper melted on my tongue, and I could taste something bitter underneath the sugar. My legs went weak, and the alley tilted sideways. "Good girl," he whispered. "Now we can go to the room." I tried to spit the candy out, but my mouth wouldn't work. He started dragging me deeper into the alley, toward a white van parked at the back. My legs buckled, and I went down hard, scraping my palms raw. The van's back door was open. Inside, I could see chains bolted to the floor, a dirty mattress and plastic sheeting on the walls beside a camera on a tripod, and there were many photographs taped up, covering every surface. All of them were girls my age. All of them had the same blank, hypnotized expression. He was lifting me toward the door when something slammed into him from behind. We both went down. His grip finally loosened, and I rolled away, gasping. "Get away from her!" Dad was on top of him, fist connecting with his face over and over. His blood sprayed everywhere. The man made this inhuman whining sound. I watched my dad beat the crap out of him. The man kept apologizing, saying he thought I was someone else, and coming up with a whole lot of lies, like he didn't mean any harm. People saw us come for help. One of them called the cops while the other took hold of the man so he couldn't run away. My dad hugged me, and for the first time I saw him crying. He kept saying sorry for not believing me earlier. I hugged him too, trying to process everything that happened. Police sirens cut through the parade music. The man was arrested. At the station, they tested what was left of the candy. He had crushed sleeping pills with something else, something the detective wouldn't name but that made him go pale. They found the van, 7 sets of chains, and the photographs. They found his basement too, with more chains, cameras, and walls covered in Polaroids of young girls of my age. The detective told Dad some of it. It's been years now. Dad made me see a therapist. He did everything he could, but no matter how hard he tried, I still see it in his eyes that he blames himself. He regrets not taking earlier action, so all of these could be avoided. But I know he's my hero. He saved me that day, without wasting a second more. It was a Tuesday morning right before recess when the announcement came over the intercom. At first, I didn't process what I was hearing. The principal's voice was trembling. "Lockdown! Lockdown! All staff, lock your doors and remain in your classrooms! There's a student with a firearm in room 5! My blood turned cold. Room 5? That's my son's class. I've been teaching at Sky High for almost a year now and never thought I'd be scared for my son's safety or mine inside the school premises. Every horrible possibility rushed through my head. I imagined him in that room, confused, terrified, maybe frozen in place. I could see my 10-year-old boy, trapped with an armed student. I couldn't contain myself anymore. I cracked the door just an inch, peering down the hallway. Students' voices were muffled behind closed doors. The only other sound was my own breathing. I knew what I was about to do was against every safety rule we'd ever been taught, but he was my son. I told one student to lock up after me so they stay safe and quietly slipped into the hall. Room 5's door was at the far end. My shoes barely touched the ground as I moved, ducking low, my hand clenched around the key ring. Suddenly, I heard an angry warning coming from room 5. "I'll pull this trigger if anyone dared to move! I'm not afraid, I swear!" My chest tightened. I reached the door and peeked through the narrow glass strip. My son, Matthew, was sitting against the far wall, tears streaking his cheeks. In the center of the room stood a taller student, holding a small black handgun.
His arm trembled, but his finger was too close to the trigger. I didn't think. I just unlocked the door and stepped in.
Hey, you don't have to do this.
The boy turned his head at me so fast that I almost heard a crack from his neck. His eyes widened with red veins popping out. He pointed the gun at me. "Get out!" I looked at Matthew and tried to calm him down.
Mama's here, Maddie. Everything's gonna be all right.
"Are you deaf? I told you to leave!" I kept talking to the boy, trying my best to reason with him without intimidating him. He flinched, the gun wavering between me and the group of students huddled near the back. I kept moving, slow and deliberate, until I was close enough to put myself between him and my son.
Just give me the gun, okay? I promise no harm will come to you. We all make mistakes, and that's totally fine.
He started putting the gun down, and I took that opportunity to disarm him. My hand shot out toward the gun. Before I got a full grip, he fired. The sound of the gunshot echoed around. All the children started screaming and crying. A searing pain tore through my side, hot and blinding. I gasped, collapsing halfway to my knees. I heard my son's scream rising above the chaos. With my blurred vision, I saw the boy pinned down to the ground by 2 officers. Even in that pain, I felt relieved. The next thing I felt was Matthew's little hands pressing against the wound. "Mom! No, please don't die on me, please!" His voice cracked, each word breaking me more than the pain. "Please talk to me. I promise I'll eat all my vegetables at dinner. I'll do all my homework before playing. I need you. Mom, please don't leave me." I wanted to reach up and hold his face, tell him I wasn't going anywhere, but my arms felt heavy.
I'm... Okay, baby. You're safe now. That's all that matters.
Tears rolled down his cheeks, splashing onto my shirt. He yelled to the officers. "Help my mom! I already lost my dad! She's the only one I have left!" His voice was trembling in a way that cut through every ounce of my strength. The paramedics arrived in a few more seconds. They lifted me onto a stretcher. My son refused to let go of my hand until someone promised he could ride with me. As they wheeled me out of the classroom, I saw the boy, the one with the gun, face down on the floor, hands cuffed, an officer's knee in his back. His face was pale, almost blank, like he didn't fully understand what had just happened. But I didn't care. My eyes went back to my son, who was walking beside the stretcher, still holding my hand like it was the only thing tethering me to life. That day, I saw my dead husband's face in my son's eyes when he said, "You're gonna be fine. You have to be." The hallway blurred past us, teachers holding their classes back, wide-eyed students peeking through door windows. I could feel every heartbeat in the wound, each one stealing a little more strength. We made it outside to the waiting ambulance. The last thing I remember before the doors shut was my son climbing in after me. The bullet missed anything vital, though the doctor said another inch and I wouldn't be here to write this. My son still sleeps with the light on, and sometimes he wakes up in the middle of the night just to check that I'm still breathing. People always ask why I didn't just stay in my classroom like we're told. The truth is simple. When you're a parent, there's no staying put when your child is in danger. You'd tear down walls, face a gun, and even take a bullet if it means that they get to live another day. That's what people don't understand about these lockdown drills. For parents, every alert isn't just a safety procedure. It's the start of a nightmare where your child's life hangs in the balance. And for too many families, that nightmare ends in silence. I was one of the lucky ones. My son came home that night with his mom still alive. But so many parents never get that miracle. This is what school shootings do. They don't just take lives, they shatter them forever. Leslie and I went to Disneyland for casual fun. We rode Space Mountain 3 times in a row, ate our weight in churros, and laughed until our faces hurt. It was the first time I'd seen Leslie laugh so much for so long. It felt good seeing her laugh. Our day was going great until we spotted this weird man outside Sleeping Beauty's castle. He was dressed as Judge Claude Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. The costume was perfect, down to the layered robe, the heavy hat, and even the little details embroidered on his sleeves. But what struck me most wasn't the costume, it was his creepy expressions. He continuously licked his lips. His eyes looked hollow and sunken, like he hadn't slept in weeks. And every few seconds he smiled at random girls for no reason. Leslie and I were walking past him when he spoke to her. "You should be careful. Beauty is a dangerous gift, especially when wicked men desire it." I laughed. Man, that's creepy as hell, but I have to say, solid impression. Leslie laughed too, nervously, but the guy didn't blink, just watched her for a beat too long before turning and disappearing into the crowd. I didn't think much of it then, just another hardcore Disney cosplayer. But with time passing, we kept seeing him. At first, I thought it was just coincidence. He was standing near the entrance to the Haunted Mansion when we got in line, then again at Pirates of the Caribbean a few rows back. I pointed him out jokingly. "Your biggest fan's still following us?" Leslie didn't laugh this time. She just looked over her shoulder and said,
What a creep.
and she was right. He wasn't looking around or checking his phone or doing anything normal. He was watching her. Even when we changed areas of the park, he somehow reappeared, always a few paces away. "Let's just go to another section," I said, trying to sound calm. Maybe he's just weird, not dangerous. After the Splash Mountain ride, Leslie wanted to change. Her shirt was soaked. She went into the women's restroom by the gift shop, while I waited outside scrolling through my phone, almost forgetting about the guy dressed as Judge Frollo. Suddenly, I heard Leslie scream from the washroom. It echoed, sharp enough to make people nearby look up. Seconds later, Leslie burst out of the restroom, pale, shaking, still in her soaked clothes.
He was inside. He was inside, watching me, smiling.
She screamed. I dropped my phone. What?
I saw his face in the mirror, right behind me. He said something, but I couldn't. He was smiling.
I went right in and found the guy standing in the girls' washroom with that same sick smile plastered on his face. I tackled him to the ground, punching and shouting obscenities at him. Blood splattered across his chin, but he didn't fight back. He just laughed, lying there getting the beating. It wasn't a normal laugh. It was deep and guttural, like the sound of a church organ vibrating under the earth. The more I hit him, the louder he laughed. People were screaming now, security rushing over, trying to pull me away. I remember one guard yelling at me to stop saying the man's bleeding, but the man felt no pain. He was smiling through the blood, his teeth red, his voice steady even as they dragged him outside. He looked at Leslie, not me, and said, "You can't hide your beauty, my dear, not from eyes that see through skin." And then he laughed again as they pulled him away. That sound still plays in my head, not like human laughter, but something echoing, like it came from a hollow place far deeper than his chest. They took him away. Security assured us the man would be banned from the park and handed over to the police. But even then, I noticed the confusion on their faces. Because when they checked his ID, or tried to, there was nothing. No wallet, no phone, not even a ticket. He shouldn't have been there at all. We stayed until closing, sitting on a bench near Main Street, too shaken to move. The fireworks went off, and for a second, the entire sky was glowing. Everyone around us was cheering, filming, and enjoying. But all I could hear was Leslie sobbing. She leaned her head on my shoulder, trembling.
He wasn't normal.
She whispered.
I felt it when he looked at me. Like he knew things. Like he'd done this before.
I didn't know what to say. A week later, Leslie and I were back home. We avoided talking about Disneyland. It felt cursed now, like that place had shown us something rotten hiding beneath all the smiles and fireworks. I was flipping through the channels when Leslie suddenly gasped.
Jamie, turn back!
We saw that man again. That same face. The man dressed as Judge Frollo, only this time without the costume. His mugshot filled the TV screen. Pale, tired, but unmistakably him. The news anchor's voice was calm but cold.
Authorities have identified the man arrested at Disneyland last week as Richard Hale, 43, a repeat offender known for stalking women in public spaces, such as amusement parks, restaurants, and shopping malls. Police say Hale often posed as characters or staff to blend into crowds before following victims into secluded areas.
Leslie covered her mouth, whispering,
Oh my god.
The report went on. Detectives had searched his apartment and found hundreds of printed photographs. Women at Disneyland, shopping centers, and cafes, all taken without their knowledge. Each photo had disturbing captions written beneath in red ink.
Hale reportedly told investigators he admired Judge Claude Frollo, claiming he was misunderstood. In his own words, why should there only be fans of Disney princesses? Why not Disney villains?
The room went silent. Leslie started crying softly, and all I could do was hold her hand, staring at the TV. The reporter moved on to another story, but I couldn't stop replaying that sick laughter in my head, that guttural, inhuman sound. He wasn't a ghost. He wasn't a demon. He was something worse. He was real. Getting married to the person you love is such a heartwarming feeling, and I was genuinely looking forward to it. Along with a fun wedding, my bros planned a bachelor party for me a few days before the wedding. It was supposed to be a guys' weekend. Daniel, my best man, and my fiance's older brother was the one who planned it. He rented this cabin in the mountains. The party was very homey, nothing wild or ecstatic, just booze, poker, and lots of barbecue. He said we all needed one last blowout before I surrender myself to his sister for life. It started off perfect, just the three of us, me, Daniel, and Ryan. The fireplace crackled with the sound of wood burning. Country jazz, accompanied by the sound of whiskey pouring in the glasses, set the mood right away. I was surrounded by my best friends and about to marry the love of my life. Life felt wonderful. We were enjoying ourselves for quite some time when we heard a car pull over outside. It was past midnight and no more guests were supposed to arrive. I looked at Daniel with a confused face. Daniel, too, looked at me and asked, "You invited someone else?" I shook my head. No one knows we're here. After a few seconds of silence, there was a knock on the front door. Ryan opened the door and I sprang up from the sofa in disbelief. It was Vanessa. Not even in my wildest dreams did I expect to see my ex at my bachelor party. And what shocked me more is, how did she find us?
Surprise!
She said, swaying slightly with half a bottle of wine in her hand.
Did you miss me?
Vanessa looked like she hadn't slept in days. Hair messy, lipstick smeared, dark circles around her eyes. Even her eyeballs appeared too big. I hadn't seen her in over 2 years, not since she showed up drunk at my apartment, screaming that I was the one who ruined her life. Vanessa? What the hell are you doing here? I asked.
I came to celebrate.
She said, brushing past Ryan.
Can't let the love of my life get married without a proper goodbye.
Daniel moved toward her. You need to leave, now. Vanessa turned slowly and smiled at him.
Aw, big brother Daniel, always playing the hero. Tell me, do you really think he's the right guy for your sister?
I stood up. All right, that's enough. But she didn't leave. She started bringing up things no one should have known. Things I told her years ago in confidence. My first panic attack, my father's drinking. Stuff I never even told my fiancé. And every time someone told her to go, she just ignored them. When I tried to get her to leave, she started breaking glasses and kicking furniture.
I'm not leaving.
She hissed.
You all think this is some fairy tale ending? That he can just walk away from me and play house with Little Miss Perfect?
Daniel stepped in front of her. If you don't want to walk out of here right now, I'm calling the cops. She stared at him for a long second. Then she whispered,
If I kill the bride's brother, the wedding never happens.
She ran to the kitchen. There was only a second of silence before we heard the drawer yank open. She grabbed the biggest kitchen knife I've ever seen. Jesus Christ, somebody stop her! Ryan screamed. Vanessa, stop! I shouted, but she didn't even look at me. She locked eyes with Daniel and charged. I don't know what came over me. I moved without thinking. I threw myself between them. We collided hard. The knife flashed between us. I grabbed her wrists and tried to wrestle it away. The events that followed occurred too quickly for me to intervene. The knife turned in her hands, and accidentally she got stabbed amidst the quarrel. She gasped just once and fell backward. The knife dug into her flesh. Her lips moved like she wanted to say something, but nothing came except blood. Ryan backed into the wall. Oh my God! Oh my God! No one spoke. No one breathed. She was gone in seconds. We all stood there, frozen, until Daniel said, You didn't mean to. You were protecting me. We can't let this situation ruin your life. I stared at him. What are you saying? Do I really need to spell it out? No one knows we're here. There's woods around us. Let's bury her. Ryan and I exchanged terrified glances, and then we agreed. We wrapped Vanessa in a bedsheet and took her out behind the cabin in the woods. It took us an hour to dig the hole deep enough. Another is to clean the blood. No one spoke. We just worked like machines. By morning, it was like she'd never existed. We drove home in silence. That was 5 days ago. Tomorrow, I'm supposed to marry Emily. I woke up in a hotel room filled with sunshine, wedding day nerves, and the scent of expensive cologne. My tux is hanging by the closet. Guests are downstairs. Everyone's smiling. No one knows what we did. Until I found the envelope. It was slipped under the door. It had no name or address. I opened it. Inside was a crumpled, torn piece of paper. A single sentence was written in shaky red smears. Don't marry her. I checked the hallway, the guest lounge, but Vanessa's nowhere. I called Daniel. He said someone's pranking me into sleep on it, but I can't. It's not the words that are keeping me awake. It's not even the handwriting. It's the stain. I know blood when I see it. I saw enough of it to soak into the cabin floor. And the handwriting? It looks like hers. I don't know what to think. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't. But that note, it felt cold in my hands. Too cold. I kept looking at it. 3 words. Don't marry her. What does it mean? That something worse is coming? Or that I'm marrying the wrong girl? Chris and I had been doing graveyard shifts long enough to establish our rhythm, but that night felt off from the start. The first time the black sedan showed up, the clock had struck 12:30. I watched it circle the lot rather slowly and disappear, leaving dust and dread behind. It returned at 1:10, and then again at 1:45, repeating the same slow loop. I tried peeping inside, but the windows were too dark. When I told Chris about it, he shrugged and said, Maybe they were lost. It is a highway, Maya. We went back to work, but I couldn't shake off the unease that something bad was about to happen. And it did, at around 2 a.m. I was scrubbing the counter when I heard car doors slam. I looked up to find 2 guys in black hoodies approaching us. Something about the way they moved made my heart clench. Before I could alert Chris, they kicked the door open. Make a sound and it'll be your last, one of them shouted, pulling out the weapon from under his hoodie. It was a crowbar, gripped like he'd used it before.
His friend pulled out a hunting knife. "Register! Now!" he snapped, making me jump. I tried to open the register, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Chris came out of the kitchen and immediately paled. "Easy," he said, putting his hands up. "Just take whatever you want." The knife guy jumped over the counter and shoved me aside. I stumbled and landed at Chris's feet, while the robber took the cash and growled as if disappointed. $343? Where's the rest? He demanded, eyes darting all around. "Tell me or I start cutting!"
That's all we've got. Please, we don't.
I choked. He retorted with a smack across the face so hard it made my ear ring. "Lie again and see what happens," he hissed. Chris tried to step in, but the crowbar guy wouldn't let him. The swing landed hard in his ribs, making him drop to his knees. Before he could recover, the robbers started herding us both into the back office. They kept demanding money, hurling profanities and kicks. When they still couldn't find anything, the guy with the knife snapped. But before he could reach out to me, Chris pulled me up and shoved me back into the walk-in freezer. He slammed the door before I could react.
Chris!
I threw myself against the door, but it wouldn't budge. Through the small window in the steel, I watched everything fall apart. Chris was already bleeding from the ribs, yet he positioned himself between the robbers and the freezer. He kept shouting at them to back off, to leave us alone. They didn't listen. The crowbar guy kicked him in the face, making his nose just explode. Still, he wouldn't release his grip. I don't remember ever feeling so helpless and scared before. When they finally kicked Chris hard enough in the temple, his hands went slack, and I froze. I stared in horror as the knife guy pulled free and started toward the freezer. Chris launched himself off the floor and tackled him down right in front of my window. He was on top, trying to pin the guy, blood all over his face and dripping onto the man beneath him. That's when the crowbar guy brought it down on the back of Chris's head. My best friend went limp. The knife guy shoved him off, allowed him to roll onto his back before he drove the blade into the stomach. The scream tore through the room. It was wet and broken and full of pain. The guy pulled the knife out and stabbed him again. Chris's body jerked, and he made this choking noise. The third time the blade went in, Chris didn't make any sound at all. His hand just reached up, as if he was trying to hold on to something. Blood was spreading across the floor so fast I couldn't process it. The two guys realized what they'd done and bolted in panic. Chris was lying on his back. His arms were spread out, and there were 3 holes in his torso. Blood was pumping out with every heartbeat. His mouth kept opening and closing, but only more blood came out. He was trying to breathe, but couldn't get air. He turned his head toward the freezer. His hands started moving across the floor, and it left a trail of blood as it went. He pressed his palm flat against the door, right where mine was on the other side. 6 inches of steel between us, and I couldn't reach him. I watched his lips move. I couldn't hear him through the door, but I knew what he was saying. Safe. Then, his hands started sliding down slowly. It left a long red streak on the white door. His eyes were still open, still pointed in my direction, but he wasn't seeing anything anymore. What I remember most is the cold, how it crept into my bones and stayed there, how I screamed until my voice was completely gone, how Chris's blood looked almost black under the bright lights instead of red like it should have been. I don't remember who found us or called the police, but I do remember how hard I begged the paramedics to save my friend. They tried for 18 minutes, but 3 stab wounds and massive internal bleeding weren't something they could undo. Eventually, Chris lost the fight. Police caught the punks 6 hours later at a motel 2 towns over. They still had the knife and $347 in cash. That was the price of my best friend's life. It's been 9 months, and I'm still not over it. I don't think I'll ever be. Sometimes, late at night, I feel that freezer cold again. I see Chris's hand sliding down the door, leaving that red streak behind.
I still get the chills when I think about that day. It was supposed to be magical, a perfect Saturday trip to Disneyland for my daughter, Macy. She'd been talking about it for months. She was 9, and at that age, everything still feels big and possible. She'd saved her allowance to buy a pair of Minnie Mouse ears. At morning, she was wearing them proudly in the back seat, singing along to the Frozen soundtrack while I drove down the 5 toward Anaheim. It was early, maybe a little after 7. The sky was soft and gold, traffic light. I remember thinking how good it felt to give her something normal, something joyful. We were on the road for quite a while and everything was usual. Suddenly, I noticed this woman on the bend of the road ahead. At first, she just looked like a performer, someone walking to an event maybe. A woman dressed in a Minnie Mouse costume, standing by the side of the road, waving both arms like she needed help. But as we got closer, I saw her more clearly. Her costume was filthy and torn. She didn't wear a mask, instead wore this Minnie ears and had weird makeup on her face. Her smile was way too big than her face. I slowed a little. Macy pointed through the glass.
Mom, Minnie's lost.
The woman stepped closer, dragging one foot slightly, a red polka dot dress stained with mud. Her voice came out flat when I rolled down the window an inch.
Going to Disneyland?
She said.
Can you take me?
I forced a small smile.
I'm sorry. We're in a hurry. I can't...
Before I could finish, the back door yanked open. I realized what a grave mistake I made by forgetting to lock it. The woman slid in beside Macy. The smell of her sweat filled the car air. I turned to yell, but she already had a knife pressed against Macy's throat.
Drive. Left at the dirt road.
My hands went cold on the steering wheel. Macy started crying. She whispered,
Mommy.
and it nearly broke me.
Please don't hurt her. I said left.
There was a dirt road, maybe half a mile ahead, one I'd never noticed before. I turned onto it, tires crunching over gravel and roots. The highway disappeared behind us. We were surrounded by trees, tall and still. Macy's cry grew louder. She looked at me with these terrified eyes, and I wanted so badly to tell her everything would be okay. But I didn't know if that was true.
It's okay, baby. Mommy's right here. Keep your eyes on the road, Mommy.
The woman's hand trembled slightly as she held the knife. She was breathing heavily, almost wheezing. We drove deeper into the woods until I saw this. A rotting cottage leaning to one side, covered in vines. The woman pointed.
There. Minnie's house. You'll both love it. It's magical.
I pulled up and parked. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. She got out slowly, still gripping the knife. For a second, she turned toward the house, as if checking something. It was my only chance.
Macy, stay down!
I screamed and slammed my foot on the gas. The car lurched forward. The woman's arm hit the door as it swung open, and she stumbled backward. I didn't look, I just drove. She started hurling rocks at my car. One smashed the rear window. Macy screamed in fear, but I kept my calm. I had to. I just kept driving. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely keep the car straight. We hit the main road again, tires screeching, and I didn't stop until I saw the other cars, real people around us. I pulled over near a gas station, jumped out, and ran to the back seat. Macy was curled up, crying hysterically, with glass in her hair, but thankfully not hurt. I grabbed her and just held her. She was trembling, gasping for air between sobs.
Mommy, I don't like Minnie anymore.
That broke me. I couldn't say anything, just held her tighter. The police came about 20 minutes later. They took our statements and searched the area, but they didn't find the woman. They said maybe it was a vagrant, someone high, unstable. But when I told them about the costume, about how she seemed to know that hidden dirt road, they just looked at each other and said nothing. That night, Macy wouldn't sleep in her room. She kept saying she saw Minnie outside the window. Every sound made her flinch. I slept next to her for weeks after that. A few days later, out of morbid curiosity, I drove past that stretch of highway again, in the daylight. I wanted to see if maybe I'd imagined it, but when I reached that spot where I'd first seen her, something caught my eye. A pair of red Minnie Mouse ears lay in the dirt near the shoulder, half buried in dust. The same kind Macy had been wearing that morning. She still had hers, which meant these weren't hers. I didn't stop. I just kept driving. To this day, I don't know who that woman was or what would have happened if I didn't drive away. But sometimes, when I drive at night and see someone on the side of the road, my body freezes up. I think about that voice, that flat, emotionless voice saying, "Going to Disneyland?" Macy's older now. We still haven't gone back to Disneyland. She doesn't even want to. She says it's not magical anymore. And honestly, I get it. Because for me, that stretch of highway, that one lined with bright billboards and palm trees, will never feel like the road to Disneyland again. It feels like the road we almost died on. It was supposed to be a quiet weekend away. Just us, no phones, no stress. Only snow, mountains, and silence. By the time we finally pulled up, dusk had already settled in. The cabin stood at the edge of a dense pine forest, surrounded by snow that swallowed sound. Mr. Harlow, the caretaker, was waiting on the porch. He looked like he'd been sitting there for a long time, hunched in a wooden armchair, thick coat buttoned to his throat. His face was leathery and pale, his gray hair slicked back. "Evening," he muttered. His voice had that flat, emotionless tone people get after too many winters alone. He didn't shake hands, just nodded toward the door. "Keys are inside. Heat's on. Pipes can be fussy, but you'll manage." Then he motioned for Mark to follow him inside to show how the heater worked. I lingered on the porch, breathing in the cold air and staring out at the tree line. As I was soaking in the view, I saw this young boy, maybe 10 years old, standing about 50 feet away in the snow. He wasn't moving, just standing there, staring directly at the cabin, at me. His hair was messy and too long, and even from that distance, I could tell his face looked pale. I gave a small wave. After a moment, he lifted one hand and waved back. I was thinking of walking towards him when Mr. Harlow's voice exploded behind me. "Hey, you! Get lost!" I flinched. The boy turned and ran, his feet kicking up snow as he disappeared between the trees. I spun around, startled. Harlow's eyes followed the boy's path into the woods, his jaw tightening. "That kid's a thief. Comes around here to try and steal food from the basement storage. Don't let him near this place. You hear me?" His tone was sharp, almost threatening. Before I could ask anything else, he stomped down the steps and drove away in his truck. That night, the cabin felt emptier without his presence outside. The wind moaned through the cracks in the wood. Mark made soup while I unpacked. We tried to relax, but I couldn't shake the image of that boy. Thin jacket, bare hands, staring through the snow. It was around 9 p.m. when I looked out the window again, and he was back. His arms were wrapped around himself, and his lips looked blue.
Mark, he's back.
I whispered. Mark came over and squinted through the glass. Jesus, he must be freezing. Maybe we can give him some food and tell him to go home. Before we could decide, a faint, high-pitched sobbing took over the silence. Strangely, it sounded around the house, moving, circling, echoing through the walls, like a child crying softly, sometimes close, sometimes distant. We both froze. Then, as suddenly as it started, the crying stopped. Mark took the flashlight and ventured out to look for answers. After 5 minutes, I heard Mark calling out my name loudly. I bolted for the basement as his voice came from there. When I reached it, Mark was already half inside, and huddled near a stack of crates was that boy. He looked terrified. Dirt streaked his face, and his clothes were soaked from snow. In his trembling hands, he held a half-eaten loaf of bread from one of the pantry boxes. Mark lowered his voice. Hey, it's okay. We're not mad. Are you hungry? The boy didn't answer. His eyes darted to the door, like he was expecting someone to come bursting in.
It's all right.
I said softly, stepping closer. His lip quivered. Tears filled his eyes. Then, in a trembling voice, he whispered, "Are you gonna tell Mr. Harlow I came here?" Before we could reply, he crawled forward and grabbed Mark's leg, sobbing. "Please don't tell him," he begged, his voice cracking. "Please, if you tell, he'll never let my sister out." I froze.
Your sister?
The boy nodded violently. "He's got her locked in a room down here. She's been there for days. He said she stole from him." Mark and I exchanged a horrified glance. "Show us," Mark said. The boy led us down a narrow hallway at the back of the basement, behind shelves and broken boxes. There was a small space in the corner. I could smell dampness, rot, and urine right away. Inside, we found this little girl, maybe 7 years old, curled on the floor in a filthy blanket. Her skin was pale and bruised, lips cracked, eyes half open. She looked too weak to even lift her head.
Oh my God!
I gasped, kneeling beside her. Her skin was ice cold. "She hasn't eaten," the boy whispered, crying. "He brings food sometimes, but he didn't come for 2 days." Mark dialed 911 with shaking hands. His voice broke as he tried to explain what we'd found. We wrapped the girl in coats and blankets and stayed by her until headlights finally cut through the trees. Mr. Harlow was arrested that night at his house down the valley. According to the reports, the boy and girl lived in a hut in the woods. Their ailing mother died days back, and for food they often came to Harlow. Instead of helping these poor kids, Harlow made them do all the chores of the cabin for free. He sometimes gave them food and other times made them starve. When one night they couldn't tolerate the hunger anymore, the little girl snuck in to get some bread when Harlow locked her in that basement. It puts me in a rage to think a human can be this cruel to children. We went to visit the kids in the hospital. The little girl smiled so big the moment she saw me. The boy hugged my husband and started crying. It's been only a year since we got married, and we had no plans to have kids soon. But seeing these two, we could barely turn our back at them. Tomorrow, we are filing for adoption. I'm not letting this kid beg for food or love for the rest of their lives. And for people like Harlow, I hope he rots in jail. I found the old 8mm camera buried in the back corner of Murphy's Thrift, under a pile of moldy magazines. The price tag read $20. It had a film reel was tucked inside it with a piece of masking tape across it. "Do not watch," it read. As an aspiring filmmaker, I couldn't resist the temptation of forbidden footage. The old guy at the register barely looked up when I bought it. Back in my apartment, I set up my small darkroom. I'd been developing films since high school, so the process was routine. Load the reel, mix the chemicals, and wait for the magic to unfold. When it was ready, I projected the footage on my bedroom wall. Initially, it was innocent stuff. Some Halloween night back in the early 90s, based on the quality and the costumes. A father was filming his 2 kids dressed as a vampire and a witch, probably 8 and 10 years old. The mother was handing out candy to trick-or-treaters at the front door. But after the last trick-or-treater left, something shifted. The kids disappeared from the frame, while the mother closed the door and locked it with 3 different deadbolts. "Are we ready?" the father hooted. "Yeah!" the children cheered. "I got the rope like you taught me, Daddy." The boy jumped enthusiastically. As the camera followed them down into a basement, the image got grainier. I could still make out a workbench, some tools hanging on the wall, and in the corner, a woman. She was bound to a chair, gagged. Her eyes were wide with terror, and cheeks were wet with tears. "Now remember what we practiced," the father said, still filming. The camera shook slightly, like he was excited. Mommy will hold Aunt Sarah still while you and your sister take turns, okay? Turns? I was horrified. I wanted to turn it off, but I was frozen. The mother walked into frame, smiling like she was about to serve dinner. She placed her hands gently on the woman's shoulders, while the kids came closer, carrying something I couldn't quite make out. The woman's muffled screams grew louder as the footage became more and more chaotic. The camera shook violently. Still, I caught flashes of open wounds and blood, and the sound of the lady choking on pure terror. Then, a sound of a chainsaw rumbled, and everything cut to black. I sat frozen in my dark apartment, heart pounding, staring at the blank wall. I just watched a real snuff film. This family had tortured, maybe even killed that woman, and they filmed it like it was nothing. I was still trying to process what I'd seen when I got a call from an unknown number. "Is this Leo?" Yeah. "Hey, this is Murphy from the thrift store. Listen, that camera you bought wasn't supposed to be sold. The owner came back looking for it. Said his father's belongings got mixed up by accident." My blood went cold. "What did you tell him?" "Had to give him your address and number from the receipt. He's on the way to pick it up from you." The line went dead. I stared at my phone as panic crawled in my chest. Before I could even blink, my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw a man in his early 40s of average height, with thinning hair, restlessly tapping his toes. He was the kind of guy you'd pass without noticing. But when he looked up at the door, I nearly whimpered. Those were the same eyes from the film, older now, but with the same cold intensity I'd seen in the footage. He was the little boy from that footage. "Leo?" He called through the door. "I can hear you. I'm David Hutchinson. I think you have something that belongs to my family." My hands shook as I backed away from the door. I don't know what you're talking about." "My father's old 8mm camera from the thrift. I already threw it away." I lied. There was a long pause. "And what about the film?" My heart stopped. He let out a low chuckle. "You watched it, didn't you?" Then there was full-blown laughter, along with unmistakable metallic scraping against the door. He was working on the lock. "What do you want?" I asked, already dialing 911 with shaking fingers. "The film, obviously. And to make sure you understand the importance of keeping family secrets." The lock clicked open. David stepped inside, closing the door behind him. The call had connected. I could hear the operator's voice, but I couldn't state my emergency. My wide eyes were pinned on the filleting knife in his hand. "You know, Dad's been dying for months," he said, looking around my apartment. "But when I told him someone has our home movies, he perked right up." "The police won't find anything. We learned a long time ago how to clean up properly and leave before they arrive." He took a step closer. I bolted toward the fire escape, but David was faster than he looked. He grabbed my shoulder, spinning me around. The knife flashed toward my face. I ducked, throwing my entire weight into his midsection. We both crashed into my coffee table. David's head hit the corner with a sickening crack, and for a moment he was stunned. I didn't wait to see if I'd killed him. I grabbed the film reel and ran for the door, taking the stairs 3 at a time. The cops arrived 20 minutes later, having traced my number. They found David lying unconscious in his own pool of blood. The knife was still in his hand. He woke up 2 days later, but he never talked, just kept smiling whenever they questioned him. The film was enough evidence to reopen several cold cases from the 90s. He succumbed to his injury in the county lockup some months later. I didn't follow up on his case or what happened to that woman because I had enough traumas already. I don't film anything anymore. can't even look at a camera without seeing that woman's terrified eyes.
I was 17 that November, working the closing shift at the McDonald's on Granville Street in Vancouver. It was a Friday, almost 11:30, and the rain was coming down in sheets. My coworker, Arya, was mopping near the bathrooms while I wiped down the tables, both of us watching the clock. 30 more minutes and we could lock up. That's when a man walked in. At first, he looked like just another late-night customer, drenched from head to toe. Maybe a bit high, I'd presume from the way he stood inside the doorway staring right at me. His clothes, a dark hoodie and faded jeans, were soaked through and clung to his frame. But what caught my attention was what he held in his hand. It was a handmade doll, maybe a foot tall, with button eyes and brown yarn hair pulled back into a messy ponytail. It had a tiny McDonald's uniform on.
Can I help you?
I managed a tight smile. My eyes kept flickering to the hideous toy. He didn't answer right away, just kept staring with these pale, watery eyes that didn't blink. Then, slowly, his lips curved into a smile that made my stomach drop. "You're even prettier in person." The way he said it sounded less like a compliment and more like confirmation of a fact he already knew. Arya looked up from her mopping.
You ordering something or what?
He ignored her completely. "I love watching you, Anna." He took a step closer, water squelching in his shoes. "You always tie your hair back the same way. Always wipe the tables starting from the left. You're so simple and predictable. It's so cute." My heart stopped. He knew my name and my schedule.
Who are you?
The words came out shakier than I wanted. His smile got wilder. "I brought you something." He held up the doll, and I saw it clearly now. The yarn hair was the exact shade and length as mine. The button eyes were as hazel as mine are. Around its neck was a tiny paper name tag with Anna written in slanted handwriting. "I made her myself." He beamed. "Took me 3 months to get the details right. The freckles were the hardest part." He turned the doll's face toward me, and I saw 3 tiny brown dots stitched across its fabric nose.
Arya, get Dave.
I choked. "Arya ain't moving anywhere. Or you." He chuckled as he reached into his hoodie pocket and pulled the knife out. The blade caught the fluorescent light. My heart started pounding in my chest as I watched him press the knife against the doll's stomach. "Do you have any idea how long I've been waiting for this?" His voice cracked. "All those nights I stood out East Hastings, 3rd floor, corner unit. You really ought to lock that bedroom window better, baby." My legs almost gave out.
Dave?
Arya screamed, backing toward the kitchen. "I need you to understand something, Anna." The blade pressed harder against the doll's fabric stomach. "You belong to me. From the first time I saw you 6 months ago, I knew. And if I can't have you..." He looked down at the doll and plunged the knife in. The fabric split open with a wet, tearing sound. Instead of stuffing, the doll was filled with blood-soaked sponges, raw meat, and tubes of red gel. When he ripped the knife upward, it all came spilling out. Thick, dark liquid with chunks of red tissue poured onto his hands before it splattered onto the white tile. The smell of iron and rot hit me immediately. I wanted to throw up. "See?" he said, laughing, squeezing the doll until the mess inside burst out in chunks. "How easy it is!" He stabbed it again and again. Each thrust sent more red splattering across the floor and his clothes. The wet meat inside made sick squelching noises as the knife went in and out. "This is what happens to girls who don't listen and ignore someone who loves them." I stared in horror as he grabbed the doll's head and twisted until it came off. More blood and tissue spilled, running down his arms. He held up the severed head, those button eyes still staring, and brought it close to his face.
My Anna.
He whispered, smooching it. Dave burst through the kitchen door with Arya behind him. What the? The man spun around, knife still in one hand, the doll's head in the other, red syrup dripping everywhere. For a second, nobody moved. Then, sirens started wailing outside, getting closer, and his face twisted.
They're gonna take me away from you.
He choked out, backing toward the door.
But they can't keep me away.
He clutched the doll's head to his chest, smearing red across his hoodie. Police came through the doors as he reached them. He didn't resist. Instead, he stayed still there in the rain. As they cuffed him, he mouthed something. I couldn't hear it over the chaos, but could read with my eyes closed.
You're mine, Anna. You're mine.
The cops revealed I was being stalked by this man for last 1 month. He secretly watched me during my shifts, maybe even followed me home at night. His name was Marcus Hendry. He was schizophrenic, off his medication, and had no family. That was 10 months ago. I moved to a different city, changed my digits, and dyed my hair blonde. I took up a simple gig at a bookstore where I never had to work nights. But some nights, I wake up at 3 a.m., convinced I hear breathing outside my window, convinced I see someone standing across the street in the shadows. The worst part is knowing he's still out there in a cell somewhere, counting down the days, still thinking and planning, because distances, walls, and bars do nothing to people like Marcus. They don't forget, and they know how to wait beyond forever. I'm a graphic designer living in Brooklyn now, but I grew up upstate near the Catskills. My dad still lives there, and I try to visit him at least once a month. The night it happened, I'd been driving back from one of those visits when my engine died on a back road I'd taken to avoid highway traffic. To make things worse, a blizzard was coming down so hard I could barely see 10 feet ahead of me. I sat there for 20 minutes, trying to get my phone's signal back as snow piled up on the windshield and the cold seeped in. The heat was gone, and my hands were going numb when I spotted this faint yellow light through the trees. I grabbed my phone for a flashlight and stepped into the storm. The wind nearly knocked me over, but I stumbled toward the light, praying it was someone who could help. Up close, I saw this old 3-story building with the huge signboard, Mercy Hills Care Facility. I knocked a little too loud on the front door. After what felt like forever, it creaked open, and a woman with dark hair peered out.
Hi, I'm Lana. My car broke down. Can I use your phone?
She looked me over slowly, then opened the door wider.
Of course. Come in. I'm Sophia, the night supervisor.
The inside was warm, but smelled like a hospital. The lights kept flickering, and somewhere down the hall, a TV hissed with static.
Phone lines are down, but you can stay until morning. Let me get you some tea.
Sophia said, leading me to a small office. I rubbed my hands together, trying to get feeling back, while Sophia disappeared and returned with tea in a chipped mug.
Drink. You must be freezing.
The tea tasted too sweet with a bitter aftertaste, but I drank it anyway.
I need to check on the residents. Don't wander around.
Her footsteps faded down the hall, and the building went quiet for a full 10 minutes before a soft thump echoed from somewhere above, followed by high-pitched, breathy giggles. I didn't want to move, but sitting still felt worse, so I stood and pushed the office door open. Outside, the hallway was narrow and dim. The walls were damp, lined with numbered doors and barred windows. The care facility felt less like a home and more like a prison. But what made my stomach twist were the leather restraints hanging from metal hooks on the ceiling. The giggling started again and felt closer this time. I shrieked as an old woman jogged past in a bathrobe, barefoot. Her thin white hair hung limp as she whispered to me.
Are you the new nurse?
Her eyes were wide and glassy.
No, I'm just waiting for the storm. Oh, the last one said that too.
Her lips curled up.
She tried to run. Sophia doesn't like that.
My stomach dropped.
What? What do you mean?
But the woman's smile just widened, and she turned around and started dancing in that empty hallway. I could sense something very weird about that place. I decided to leave. I started walking faster, looking for another exit. I could hear the soft crying, whispers, and the slow drag of fingernails on wood from behind the closed doors. One door was cracked open. I looked inside and wished I hadn't. The bed was covered in dark stains. A tray nearby had restraints, leather straps, and electroshock equipment along with other laboratory instruments.
Curious little thing, aren't you?
Sophia's voice came from directly behind me.
I should go. The storm's...
Getting worse. And you drank the tea.
She smiled.
You'll be too drowsy to leave soon.
I spun around and tried to get away, but she grabbed my arm with impossible strength.
You are one of us now.
One by one, doors opened up, and the residents stepped out. They moved in eerie silence, with eyes that didn't blink. My head was spinning from whatever she'd slipped into that tea. They were getting closer. I twisted my head and bit down on her hand, hard. She screamed and loosened just enough. I stumbled forward, searching for a way out. I was being herded. Still, I ran. The hallway dead-ended at a door marked treatment room. Sophia screamed from behind me.
You'll be an excellent subject, Lana.
The residents were coming at me like they were in a trance, eyes all blank, but hands stretched forward to grab me. It reminded me of The Walking Dead. That's when I saw the narrow side window, half hidden by a filing cabinet. Surprisingly, it was barless. I grabbed a fire extinguisher mounted on the wall and swung. The glass exploded.
Get her!
Sophia screamed. I threw myself, feeling glass tear into my skin. I hit the snow hard and forced myself up. I ran into the white void of the blizzard. The freezing air shocked some clarity back into my drugged system. I crashed through snowdrifts, tumbling over. Behind me, I could hear their giggles echoing. I remember headlights and the crunch of tires on ice before everything went black. I was found on the snowy sidewalk by the cops. I woke up at the hospital and told them about Mercy Hills and Sophia, but hearing my words, the cops looked at each other with confusion, like they were having a difficult time believing me. I was eventually told that the whole place and its residents had burned to the ground a year back. It was an electrical fire, and amongst the ashes was Dr. Sophia Hale, a neuroscientist who lost her license 20 years ago after conducting unauthorized brain mapping on her patients. She was also a patient there, along with others who thought of her as the night supervisor. It's difficult to believe I saw ghosts of dead people, but I can't brush off the memory of that night. The weird thing was that the cops told me the window that I broke to escape from never existed. All the windows of the building are barred, and the only way out is the main road from which I entered. So, what exactly happened with me that night?
It had been a week since I broke up with Raphael, my boyfriend of 7 years, when the softball hit my face at 60 miles per hour during our company's charity game. I heard the crack before I felt the pain and saw the blood. I'd lost my nose and cheekbone. The ER doctor said I needed immediate surgery. My insurance approved Dr. Valdez, a facial reconstruction specialist with great reviews. They kept saying how lucky I was to get him on such short notice. What happened after that is still a blur. I signed consent forms I barely read, nodding along to things I didn't understand. But I do remember the anesthesiologist's calm voice telling me to count backward from 10. I made it to 3 before everything went black. I didn't wake up to the usual post-surgery ache. The pain was sharp, almost alive, like something was tearing through my skull from the inside. I tried to open my eyes to scream, but I couldn't. My body was completely paralyzed, and yet I was fully awake and could feel and hear everything. Hand me the smaller scalpel and remind me what he wanted changed,
Everything.
the assistant explained.
The nose, the cheekbones, and the jawline, even the orbital bones. He sent AI-edited versions of her face and wants her to look exactly like those images.
He? Panic shot through every nerve. Someone had paid to replace my face without my consent. I tried to move and scream, but my body wouldn't respond. All I felt was the burn and pressure against my skin, the wet, tearing sound and warm liquid running down my cheeks. He's very specific. Paid extra for the additional work.
Isn't this illegal, though? She didn't consent to any of this.
Her consent form has language about necessary corrections discovered during surgery. Legally, we're covered, and he paid us. I felt desperate and helpless as I tried to move. I focused every ounce of willpower into my right hand, but nothing happened.
How much longer?
Another 2 hours, maybe 3. We are essentially rebuilding her entire facial structure. I couldn't endure 3 more hours of feeling them cut into my face, file down my bones, and reshape me into someone's sick fantasy, and the pain kept getting worse. I could feel them working on my cheekbone, the vibration of the saw against bone. Every nerve in my face was screaming, but I couldn't make a sound. Then, my finger twitched and my hand jerked.
Her vitals are spiking, Doctor.
Well, give her more propofol. Cold liquid hit my IV line, but I fought against it with everything I had. And somehow, my eyes flew open. The surgical lights blinded me. Through the glare, I could see Dr. Valdez's shocked face above mine, scalpel still in hand. I had a breathing tube down my throat, so I couldn't scream, but I thrashed as hard as I could. She's awake! His assistant grabbed my shoulders, but adrenaline was burning through the paralysis. I ripped the breathing tube from my throat, felt it scrape all the way up as I screamed. I grabbed the instrument tray and sent it flying. Metal clattered everywhere, catching the two off guard. I rolled off the table and hit the ground hard. My face was on fire. Hot blood ran hot down my neck. Melissa, stop! You need to calm down! I crawled toward the door. My legs kept buckling under me, but I kept moving. Somehow, I made it to the door, opened it, and fell into the hallway. 2 nurses spotted me, covered in blood, with half of my face bandaged and the other half raw and open. They started screaming.
Call security! Call the police!
I collapsed right there. My screams brought more people running. They surrounded me, trying to understand what happened, while I thrashed and pointed back at the operating room. My gown was soaked in blood. My face was half done. One side bandaged neatly, the other side raw meat and exposed bone. I tried to talk, but my jaw wasn't working right. Security had Dr. Valdez against the wall. His assistant was crying, saying something about just following orders. Someone called 911 while another surgical team rushed me to a different OR. As they sedated me, I heard Dr. Valdez shouting that I'd signed the consent forms and that this was all legal. When I woke up hours later, a cop was waiting by my bed. My face was properly bandaged now. The pain was dulled by medication. They'd done what they could to repair the damage, but the doctor's expression told me what he didn't. The cop explained how the hospital security had seized Dr. Valdez's phone and found messages from Raphael, wire transfer confirmations, and dozens of photos of mine, edited with AI filters and apps. Unlike my real self, the AI version had a sharper jawline, higher cheekbones, and an unnaturally straight nose, the kind of face you see on Snapchat. Turns out, he had hired someone to throw the softball at my face and bribed hospital staff to make sure I got assigned to Dr. Valdez. The moment I broke up with him, he'd set everything in motion. I knew he was controlling and obsessive. It was part of the reason why I broke up with him. But I never imagined he'd be this insane. The anesthesiologist said I shouldn't have been able to wake up. The number of drugs in my system should have kept me under for hours. But somehow my body metabolized it faster, or terror overrode it. If I'd stayed unconscious for another 2 hours, the changes would have been permanent, and I would have woken up as Raphael's AI-filtered girlfriend. Raphael got 15 years. Dr. Veldaz got 20. I spent 6 months in corrective surgeries, trying to fix the mess. My face will never look exactly like it did, but it's mine. The worst part isn't the scars or even the trauma. It's that for 2 hours, I was awake but couldn't move, while someone tried to erase my identity because being human and real was too much for him. And there are so many of them out there, alive and waiting.
I've done a lot of dumb things for our YouTube channel, but the night Leah and I explored the local elementary school, we had no idea how our lives were going to change. The school sits in the middle of nowhere. No paved roads, no power lines, just thick woods and silence. It's been abandoned since the fire in '78, when a lockdown drill turned into a nightmare. Most of the kids got out, but a few didn't. Neither did one of the teachers. Locals believed the place is haunted. Hence, we had to check it out. It took us an hour to hike there, following an overgrown path. The moon barely lit the clearing where the school sat, its windows shattered, brick walls charred black. The moment we stepped inside, our flashlight beams cut through clouds of dust. The air was stale and cold. I began filming. Leah explained the surroundings for our viewers. We were going inside the classrooms in the hallway. The floors were warped, and lockers melted into strange shapes. There were small handprints all over the walls, which the locals say belonged to those children, but I was sure those were just made by raccoons. You see, I'm not a believer in the supernatural, and neither is my girlfriend Leah, and that's why we try to prove to our audience by exploring haunted locations. So far, everything was going well, when suddenly Leah asked,
Did you hear that?
I chuckled, replying, We agreed not to lie to our viewers, Leah. Also, you might need to take some acting classes. She punched me in the arm and whispered,
I heard something from that room.
Leah glanced at me nervously and pushed the door open and went in. But before I could take a step in, the door slammed shut on my face. Leah! I yelled, shoving the door. It was like someone was holding it shut from the other side. From inside, I could hear Leah scream.
Oh my god, what's happening?
I was about to break the door down when I heard children crying inside. Drops of sweat rolled down my spine. Is this place really haunted? Leah's screams were getting louder. I slammed my shoulder against the door until it flew open. The lock gave way and I almost tripped onto the dusty floor inside the classroom. The air stank of smoke so strong it burned my throat. Leah was standing in the corner, pale and shaking. What did you see? What happened in here?
I only saw clouds of smoke and heard kids crying in pain. Oh my god, it was horrible. Let's just get out of here.
We didn't talk much after that, just kept moving, trying to shake off the feeling. That's when my flashlight beam caught something at the far end of the hall. A woman was standing there. The moonlight from the window illuminated her tangled gray hair and slouched shoulders. One side of her face was smooth and pale. The other was mutilated and scrunched. Her clothes were filthy, and she just stared at us. Leah whispered slowly, clutching my shirt.
You do see her, right?
I nodded my head. The woman suddenly backed away and disappeared into the darkness. With a shaking voice, I told Leah that it's better to get the hell out of this place. Just then, we heard a spine-chilling scream, and no doubt it was that same woman.
We bolted down the hallway. The lockers started slamming shut on either side of us without anyone touching them. The cry of children again rose from the dusty, forgotten classrooms. We shouldn't have come here. There's something very wrong with this place. When we were almost close to the exit, that same woman came running from the adjacent hallway on our right and blocked our way. I don't know how she got there so fast before us. As I noticed her hand, I feared for our safety. She was grabbing tightly to a rusted crowbar. We froze. My heart was hammering so hard it hurt. Leah was about to cry. A woman stepped closer. A weird smile stretched across her face.
You can't lock them in again. I won't let you.
What? No, we're not here.
They were just little ones. My boy, Tommy. He was only 12. I watched him perish into the smoke. I watched him melt into the fire.
She raised her crowbar, looking at us with blank eyes.
I heard him scream. I couldn't get to him. The fire was too fast. By the time they opened the door, he was gone. All of them are gone. And you're here to trap more children. They cry every night. I won't let you do it.
I understood the truth from her words. She's a mother who lost her child, and that trauma never heals. I tried comforting her while Leah called 911. I assured her that we're not here to hurt anyone, and we want to help her. She blinked, like she wasn't sure if she believed me. Then, her face twisted, grief curdling into rage.
You're lying!
She screamed, rushing forward with the crowbar raised. Leah screamed, fearing she might hurt me, but the woman was too weak. I grabbed her arm and took the crowbar away. We waited with her until the cops came and made sure that the woman was taken for medical evaluation. Later, I looked up the fire. There really was a boy named Tommy on the list of victims. His mother's name wasn't mentioned anywhere. I guess no one ever cared what happened to her. But I know. It's saddening to think that for so long that poor woman lived in those blackened halls, convinced she was protecting the children she couldn't save. I just hope she got the help she needed. Even though we got many questions answered, still one remains a mystery to this day. Leah and I both heard the children crying, but saw no one. Did you hallucinate? Or is there really something called spirits? What do you think? After dating for 8 months, my girlfriend Ursula asked me to meet her family at Thanksgiving. The drive took 3 hours through the mountains. Throughout, Ursula kept checking her phone and biting her nails. Are you nervous? I chuckled.
What? No. I'm just meeting them after a long time, that's all.
Before I could grill her, we pulled up beside this massive Victorian house, sitting alone in the valley. Her father greeted us at the door, wearing a black suit.
Dad, this is Gary.
Ursula said. He shook my hand tight enough to hurt. Welcome. His voice was deeper than I expected. But his wife, Mrs. Hartley, was the complete opposite. She took my coat with this huge smile and couldn't stop talking. Her eyeballs were always restless. Ursula took me to meet her grandmother. The old woman sat in a high-backed chair by the fireplace, hands folded, eyes locked on nothing. Hey, Grandma, I greeted. She didn't respond and just kept staring ahead.
She has dementia and doesn't really interact anymore.
Mrs. Hartley stayed in the kitchen while Ursula gave me the tour. The house was spotless, filled with expensive decor. We stopped in front of a portrait in the hallway of an old man with sharp features. He stared down at us from the frame with the coldest eyes I'd ever seen. He was wearing a dark suit, and his smile made my skin crawl.
That's Grandpa.
Ursula said.
Cardiac arrest took him 3 years back, during the Thanksgiving dinner.
Jesus, I'm sorry.
Don't be. He was traditional. Everyone was terrified of him.
She paused, staring at the portrait.
Sometimes I think he still runs things around here.
What do you mean?
Dinner's ready.
Mrs. Hartley's voice cut through before Ursula could answer. The dining room table was filled with all kinds of foods: roasted turkey, shepherd's pie, cherry cake, mashed potatoes, and stuffed veggies. I felt a rumble in my stomach right away. I was about to sit when I noticed 6 chairs instead of 5. Ursula probably sensed my confusion and whispered,
We always keep one chair for Grandpa. Traditions.
Even though it was weird, I brushed it off and jumped straight onto food. Mr. Hartley carved the turkey in complete silence. Grandma just kept smiling at nothing, and Mrs. Hartley wouldn't stop talking. "Let's say grace," Mr. Hartley urged. Everyone joined hands and the ceremony began, but I couldn't focus. My eyes kept drifting to the empty chair, and I began to feel it wasn't empty at all. "Heavenly Father, we thank you for this meal, for bringing..." Suddenly, the lights cut out all at once. The windows slammed open, letting the freezing wind tear through the house.
We forgot the candles.
Mrs. Hartley shrieked, already sprinting toward the kitchen. Mr. Hartley followed. Ursula hesitated, looking at me with wide, terrified eyes.
It's fine. I'll be back.
She said, but her face looked distressed. Ursula ran after her parents, and I was left to sit there in the darkness, lit only by moonlight. That's when I realized I was still holding Grandma's hand, and she was still smiling, staring at me.
He likes you.
She whispered in a voice too steady for a dementia patient.
Grandpa likes you. He's been waiting to meet you, Gary.
I tried to pull away, but her nails dug into my skin like claws.
He's sitting right there.
She pointed at Grandpa's empty chair. The cushion was definitely compressed now, and on the white tablecloth, I could see bloody handprints that weren't there a few moments back. Suddenly, I heard breathing above me. I looked up, and my brain just stopped working. Something that looked like a human, but wasn't a human, was hanging from the ceiling. Its fingers and toes were dug in like a spider. Gray skin was stretched over bone, while eyes glowed yellow. It spoke to me in a demonic voice. "Welcome to the family, Gary." I screamed and fell from the chair. I ripped my hand from Grandma's grip, tearing skin, and bolted. Behind me, that thing dropped from the ceiling with a wet thud that shook the floorboards. I ran straight to the front door and fumbled with the lock. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely grip it. I looked behind and saw a corpse-like figure standing on all fours just a few inches away from me. It is smiling and drooling. The moment the lock turned, I threw myself out into the freezing night. I was halfway across the gravel driveway when I heard Ursula calling me back.
Grandpa likes you, Gary. He won't hurt you. Come back.
I threw myself into the driver's seat and slammed the door. Suddenly, Mr. Hartley came running to my car. "You're offending him! We can't let you leave!" "Yeah, I would rather not be a part of this freak show. I'm leaving." He lunged on my hood and started punching the windshield. His face was filled with anger and desperation. He was punching so hard that at one point the glass shattered from one corner. I somehow managed to start the engine, slammed it into reverse, and floored it. Ursula's father flung to the side as gravel sprayed everywhere. In the rearview mirror, I saw him and Ursula standing in the driveway, watching me leave with disappointed faces. Ursula tried reaching out many times, dropping texts and sending emails, but I blocked her number. She showed up at my apartment too, but I wouldn't open the door.
Gary, please. I need to explain.
I threatened to call the cops and press charges. She gave up, but left one long message about how sorry she was. How she just wanted me to meet him because Grandpa still runs the family. I deleted it. Until today, I spend Thanksgiving alone. I haven't been able to date anyone because I'm scared to trust. Every Thanksgiving night, I sleep with lights on because I'm terrified I will see that horrifying figure latched onto the ceiling, breathing above my head.
My modeling career hit a bump when my client called me ordinary. I was desperate to change my face. That's when I found Dr. Ramirez. The clinic was 40 minutes outside Cartagena, down a road that went from asphalt to dirt. Throughout the ride, the Uber driver kept glancing at me in the rear view, like he was waiting for me to bail out. When we finally stopped in front of this squat concrete building with blacked-out windows, he shut off the engine, turned around, and muttered something like a warning in Spanish. When I entered the clinic, I was immediately surrounded by the stank of bleach. There was only one other patient. They were wrapped in bandages head to toe, sitting so still I wasn't sure they were breathing at all. The receptionist slid a stack of Spanish consent forms across the counter, and once I scribbled my name, she led me to Dr. Ramirez. At first glance, he looked pretty off-putting. He wore this metallic headgear for God knows what reason.
Change into the gown. The anesthesiologist will be here soon,
Dr. Ramirez said in a gravel-like voice. I should have left right there, trusting my instinct, but I didn't. Once I changed into the gown and lied down on the operation table, two people rushed in, wearing Halloween masks, a clown and a pig. Wait, what the hell is this? I tried to sit up, but hands slammed me back down.
Relax. They're just here to help me.
Dr. Ramirez walked in with a sick smile. His eyes were glowing in joy, like he had waited for this moment for so long. The pig mask chuckled from behind. The clown clamped a hand over my mouth, while the pig mask guy searched for something. I was held on the table tight by two others. Dr. Ramirez was hovering over my stomach, all set to split it open. His gloved hands were moving like he was desperate to cut me open.
Hurry up! Sedate him!
Ramirez growled, irritated. But before they could inject me, my hand flew out and caught the instrument tray, sending it crashing. I grabbed the first thing I could, a scalpel, and slashed wildly at Dr. Ramirez. I'd cut his arm deep. I then kicked the only light source above my head, breaking the bulb and turning the room into darkness. Dr. Ramirez and his crazy assistants went in full chaos. I crawled on the floor in the dark using my hands to find the door, when I heard a kid crying. I darted back to the shady hallway. I could still hear chaos from that room. I spotted another room to my left and, to my shock, found this little girl, about 10 years old, crouched in the corner. She was terrified. I asked her what she was doing here. The poor kid told me she's an orphan and Dr. Ramirez picked her up from her foster parents. Not just illegal surgeries, but this clinic delved deeper into the crime world. I couldn't leave without the kid. I took her and hid her head in my chest to shield her from upcoming traumas.
Are they gone?
I don't know, sweetheart, but we're getting out, okay?
The doctor said my foster parents took money to send me here.
Her voice broke and my throat tightened. Knowing that her foster parents gave her to a monster like Ramirez for money made me even more angry. She looked up, eyes wet.
You promise you won't leave me?
I swear, I said, gripping tightly. Not until we see sunlight. I didn't have my phone, hence I couldn't call cops. The only way out was to run and escape this hellhole. I could hear them coming through the door. My eyes darted around, looking for anywhere to hide. There were a few trash cans lined up by the wall, but most were overflowing with bloody rags and tubing. I eventually spotted one that was empty. I put the kid in that one and covered her with those rags and told her to be quiet, and I got inside another one right beside her, trying my best not to make any sudden movement to let them know about my existence. I pulled the lid shut just as their footsteps came out the back door. The air inside stank of rust and bleach, and I could hear the boots crunching gravel outside.
He couldn't have gone far, and he took the kid!
Ramirez shouted. I held my breath, praying they wouldn't check the bin. The flashlight swept over the bin, throwing shaky patches of light inside. I didn't breathe or move. I kept praying until everything blurred and darkness took over. I pushed the lid open slowly and crept out, listening. The little girl was still hidden, trembling beneath the bloody rags. I called out to her and she peeked up. We waited a full minute before moving. I remembered the generator hum from earlier. It came from the back. That meant there was probably a service exit nearby. We crawled through the hallway, stepping over broken glass and smeared blood. The operating room door was cracked open. I could see Ramirez inside, screaming at his men. They all thought we were gone. We found the emergency door and ran to the highway until lights faded behind us. Eventually, a man in a pickup truck found us and took us to the police station. We informed the cops, and the little girl's foster parents were arrested. They couldn't find Ramirez in his clinic. It seemed like he already knew the cops would be looking for me, so he escaped along with his men. 2 months have gone by since this incident. I'm working a normal job. I met Lucia at her new foster home last week. She's much happier and loved there. Honestly, I don't regret going to Ramirez's clinic. If I hadn't, God knows what they would have done to Lucia. I'm pretty sure Ramirez used to steal organs from patients in the name of plastic surgery and sell them illegally. Wherever he is, I hope he gets caught before he ruins more lives. When I saw that mirror at Henderson's Thrift, this antique thing with a brass frame and mad detailing, all for $15, I didn't think twice.
Now, remember, sweetie, no returns.
The store owner warned with this tight smile. I nodded and immediately hit up Lucy to help me carry it. It took us all afternoon to get it mounted right, but once we did, it totally lit up my crusty dorm room. The glass was so clean it made the otherwise shitty lighting look like a movie set. That night, I went to bed feeling smug about bagging the deal, only to be jolted awake hours later to this bone-deep cold that had me shivering like a dry leaf. The room wasn't only icy, but also eerily quiet, as if someone had sucked all the sound out, except for this faint scraping noise that seemed to echo from a distance. I strained my ear to listen intently. It felt like someone was dragging their fingernails against glass. I should have stayed in bed, should have pulled the covers over my head and waited for it to pass. But this wild, irresistible urge was eating me up. I had to check on the mirror. I slid out of bed and started walking. The scraping got louder with each step, but when I was maybe 3 feet away, it stopped altogether. I leaned in to find my reflection staring back at me. Even in a daze, I could feel that something about it was wrong. Instead of the amber of my eyes, the one staring back seemed dark, sunken, and hollow. The nose was crooked, and the skin was pale as paper. It took me a second to realize that it wasn't my eyes, nose, or face. I spun around, and she was right there, just inches away, donning a torn nightgown. Blood was staining the fabric dark, while her hair hung in greasy strings, framing this carved-in smile that was way too wide for her face. She tilted her head and grinned at me. I screamed and stumbled, squeezing my eyes shut so tight I saw stars. My heart hammered against my ribs as I waited for something, anything, to happen. Minutes passed. When I reopened my eyes, I was alone. I hurriedly grabbed my phone's flashlight and swept it around the room, trembling. But it was just me and the shadows dancing in the weak LED glow.
It's stress eating you up.
I whispered to myself. Suddenly, my door handle started rattling. It was no gentle knocking. The shaking was violent, like someone was trying to rip it off the hinges. The sound echoed through my room like gunfire.
Who's there?
I called out. No one answered.
Lucy?
I crept to the peephole, grabbing my softball bat along the way. The hallway was empty, just those flickering fluorescent lights that never worked right. The rattling stopped the second I looked. I heaved a sigh and backed away from the door, but before I could figure anything out, my closet exploded into motion. The whole thing shook like an earthquake was trapped inside. The hangers clung in a way that made my teeth ache. I yanked it open, ready to swing the bat. but there was nothing except my clothes and other knickknacks.
Get it together, Jenna.
I muttered as I climbed back into bed, pulling my covers up. I kept gaslighting myself that it was my brain cooking up, just my imagination, probably too much caffeine and stress. I had barely closed my eyes when the knocks echoed from directly underneath my mattress. Tap, tap, tap. My blood turned to ice. I lay there frozen, listening to my heartbeat thunder in my ears. Part of me knew I shouldn't look. Every horror movie ever made had taught me that much. But I couldn't just lie there anymore. I rolled to the edge and peered over. She was crouched under my bed, looking up at me with that impossible smile. Her face was gray, almost corpse-like, and her eyes were black holes that seemed to absorb the light.
Jenna, come join me.
She giggled, reaching up. My eyes zoomed in on her hands. Her fingers were severed at the knuckles. They were just bloody stumps with bones showing through. Dark blood dripped steadily onto my floor, pooling in spots that seemed to swallow the light completely.
Come with me. We'll make him pay.
She hissed, stretching those mutilated stumps toward my face. I bolted from that room like my ass was on fire, and I pounded on Lucy's door until she opened it.
Jenna? What happened? The mirror. There's something in the mirror.
I gasped, pushing her in and locking the door. Lucy listened as I told her whatever I'd seen. She wanted to check my room, but I wouldn't let her go back there. Not until morning. I spent the night on her couch, barely sleeping. When the sun came up, Lucy announced,
We're going back to that thrift store.
The owner of Henderson's Thrift looked like he'd aged decades overnight. When Lucy slammed my receipt down and demanded he take the mirror back, his face went paper white. "Told you, no returns," he said quietly.
Bullshit!
Lucy snapped.
You know something about it you didn't tell my friend?
It took Lucy threatening to call the cops before he finally cracked. "I bought it from a police auction," he whispered, glancing around the empty store. "It was of a woman named Rebecca. She was murdered. Her body was found in front of that mirror." My stomach dropped.
Murdered? How?
Her husband was strung out, needed cash for his next fix. When she said no, he came at her with a kitchen knife, chased her through the house and stabbed her over and over. He paused, staring at my hands. She tried to grab the blade, got her finger sliced clean off, but he cornered her in the bedroom eventually. Lucy grabbed my arm, but I barely felt it. We walked out of that store, but I never went back to my dorm room. Had maintenance pack up my stuff and get rid of that mirror while I waited in the lobby like a coward. It's been months, and I'm still trying to put it behind me.
I'm 13, in 8th grade, and I swear to God I will never forget that Friday afternoon. It was just another boring period before lunch. The sky outside was heavy and gray, making the classroom feel even more dull. I was doodling in the corner of my notebook when the sharp, echoing sound of the lockdown alert blared through the school's PA system. We all froze for a second, but then everyone shrugged it off, thinking it was just another drill. Our teacher, Miss Haley, told us to get under our desks, away from the windows, and be quiet. People were giggling and whispering. Some were even texting under the table. None of us were too worried, until we heard screaming. It felt like someone was screaming desperately for their life. As I listened carefully, I heard sneakers skidding on tile. Whoever was screaming was getting dragged down the hallway. A couple of kids near the door started whispering, asking each other what was going on. That's when Matt, one of the seniors in our mixed science class, slowly crawled in through the little rectangle window of the classroom, gasping, and locked it quickly. I'll never forget the way his face drained of all color. It's Mr. Kessler. He's gone mad. Mr. Kessler was our biology teacher. Everyone loved him. He was the cool teacher. He told stories, made stupid science jokes, and even let us eat in class sometimes. But who Matt described didn't sound like Mr. Kessler at all. He's dragging Jake down the hall. He has a knife. There's blood. His lab coat's covered in it. Everyone thought he was joking, until he added the knife and blood. Miss Haley's eyes widened in shock. She immediately locked the door and told us to calm down while dialing 911. I was directly across from the window. Suddenly, I caught a glimpse. Mr. Kessler's face was pressed on the glass, and he was watching us. His eyes were wide and fixated on me. He was in some kind of trance. He slowly raised his one hand, clutching a bloody scalpel, and then pulled up Jake, who had this huge slit on his face, bleeding like hell. All the students screamed at the horrible sight. Not even in our wildest dream did we imagine seeing someone mellow and calm like Mr. Kessler behaving this violently. He dropped Jake, who hit the floor unconscious, making a thud, and then knocked at the glass. Leaning close to the window pane, he whispered, "Science class isn't over yet." I could hear his slow breathing through the crack in the door. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I'd die. He spoke again, louder this time, cutting through the silence.
Open the door. I need some more students for a practical exam.
A few kids whimpered. Miss Haley tried to reason with him.
Look, you need to calm down, okay? The cops will be here soon. Why are you behaving like this? You're such a good person, Kessler.
Then it hit me, like a cold punch to the gut. 2 days ago, Jake, I, and Louise had been walking past the science lab. Mr. Kessler was inside cleaning jars of preserved specimens, and we mocked him, saying he was playing with dead frogs for fun. I thought it was harmless until now. I stood quiet, praying to God for sending someone for our rescue. But I swear Mr. Kessler was staring straight at me like he needed only one moment to finish me off. He raised his bloody hand again and smeared a thick streak of blood across the glass. Then, pointing at me, he screamed,
I'll show you what a real dissection looks like.
A few students started sobbing in panic. Just when I thought we'd be safe inside the class, Mr. Kessler ran the tip of the scalpel along the glass, making this high-pitched squeal that made my teeth hurt.
I'll start with the skin. Peel it back, nice and slow. Look at the muscles, the veins.
I squeezed my eyes shut. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't hold my phone. He stayed there for what felt like forever, pressing his forehead against the glass, breathing heavily. And then he started jiggling the doorknob. The air in the room turned electric with panic. Everyone started screaming for their lives. Miss Haley kept pleading with Kessler to stop, but he had turned into a complete maniac. My mind raced. He wasn't going to stop. The only thing between him and us was that lock. And if he got in, I don't even know what came over me. Without thinking, I started pulling my desk to shield the door. Seeing me do that, many others followed. Mr. Kessler kept kicking and screaming, but he couldn't get in. We could hear his frustrated footsteps making rounds around the classroom. And finally, we heard the sirens. Once the police got in, it was over in seconds. Through the window, I saw them restraining Mr. Kessler face down on the floor. His lab coat was soaked with blood. The scalpel was lying a few feet away. They rushed Jake, who was miraculously still breathing even after all that blood loss. The cops led Mr. Kessler out in handcuffs. He didn't fight. We all came out and stood in the hallway watching him. He turned his head just before getting inside the cop car and chuckled creepily, then shouted,
I'll be back, because science class isn't over.
That was the last time I saw him. The school was closed for a week after that. The hall where it happened sealed off. The news said the injured kid would recover, but no one explained why Mr. Kessler snapped. Some say he had a mental breakdown. Others whispered it was revenge. For me, I can't shake the feeling that it wasn't random, that he came looking for me and my friends, that maybe safeguarding the door saved all of our lives.
I knew I should have trusted my gut the second I walked in, but I was 25, flat broke, and clinging to the hope of finding something decent for my friend's gallery opening, and the thrift store felt like my last shot. The place looked like it hadn't been updated since the 80s. The fluorescent lights buzzed and flickered overhead, casting everything in this sickly yellow glow that made my skin look corpse pale. The store was practically empty, except for the cashier, a couple of other customers shuffling around, and this shady-looking guy. He was maybe 40, with greasy hair hanging in strings around his face and clothes that looked like he'd been wearing them for weeks. He was standing in the middle of the woman's lingerie section. Didn't seem like he was shopping, though. I tried to ignore him as I walked past and focused on the vintage dresses instead, but I couldn't shake off the weird vibes. Every time I glanced up, he was closer. He wasn't walking toward me exactly, but somewhat drifting. When I moved to the blazer section, I caught him ducking behind a rack of coats. My hands started shaking as I pretended to examine a jacket, using the reflection in a nearby mirror to keep track of him. He was crouched down, partially hidden, but I could see his eyes, closely following every one of my movements. It would have been easiest to bolt without ever looking back, but instead, I convinced myself I was being unnecessarily paranoid and moved toward the back of the store where they kept the shoes. That's when I saw the phone. He was holding it at waist level, and the camera was angled toward me. I snapped, marching over to him.
What do you think you're doing?
He looked up at me with these watery blue eyes and shrugged. Just looking around. Nice view, don't you think? The childishness in his voice made my skin crawl.
You're recording me. I saw your phone.
Don't know what you mean. But he was beaming ear to ear, like he was enjoying the attention. His teeth were stained yellow, and there was something dark stuck between the front ones. Fortunately, the commotion had caught the cashier's attention, who appeared already leery of the weirdo. Any problem here? Pointing an accusing finger, I hissed.
He's been following me around and filming me.
The guy looked at him with disgust. Leave before I call the cops. Suddenly, that weirdo's whole face flipped. He had the audacity to look hurt, like we were being so unfair to him. His childlike expression vanished entirely, and I could see raw rage dancing in his eyes. He started backing toward the door, but his stare locked on mine. Before stepping out the exit, he loudly said, "I just wanted to see who you really are. Drop the act, you know? Security! I'm leaving, all right? I'm out!" He stormed off, muttering under his breath. I lingered in the store for a while, hoping the matter's resolved. By the time I stepped outside, the sun was low, casting long shadows between the few cars still left in the lot. I got to my car and was about to get in when I heard the faint footsteps behind me. "You can't hide forever. I'll find you. Always." He was standing there, still wearing that awful grin. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped my keys. He looked like he was about to sprint straight at me. But without wasting a second more, I dove into my car. I slammed the door shut and started jamming the lock button over and over until my thumb went numb. The guy brought his face closer to the window. His breath fogged the glass, and I could see every detail of his feature up close. The broken capillaries in his nose, the thin scar running from his left ear to his jaw, and the way his pupils quenched into tiny black dots, scaring the hell out of me. "Pretty, pretty car for a very pretty girl. Step out." I didn't. He looked pissed. He straightened up and walked around to the front. I watched in horror as he grabbed my windshield wipers and yanked them off, tossing them aside like twigs. The sound of metal scraping against metal made me numb. He repeatedly asked me to step out while vandalizing my car. He broke the headlights, dragged keys across my hood in long, deliberate strokes. He was humming while he did it. Some tune I couldn't recognize that sounded like a lullaby played backwards. I fumbled for my phone to call 911, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. The screen kept slipping from my fingers. He picked up a rock from the edge of the parking lot and held it up so I could see it. He lightly pecked at it before he hurled it at my windshield. The cracks started at the corner and spread like a spider web, distorting everything beyond the glass. But it was his laugh that really broke me. Not angry or frustrated, just delighted, like he was a kid who just figured out how to make the perfect paper airplane. He spat on my window, a thick glob that slowly slid down the glass, and then he ran away. Not fast or panicked, just trotting away like he was late for dinner. I sat in that parking lot for minutes, sobbing and shaking, before I could gather enough strength to drive home. The police took my statement, but they said without witnesses or security cameras, there wasn't much they could do. They'd keep an eye out and file a report. That was weeks ago. I haven't been back to that part of town since, but I know he's still out there. I know because sometimes, when I'm walking to my car after work, I hear that humming. And sometimes, when I check my rearview mirror, I swear I see a figure ducking behind the cars. I don't talk about this night. Not to my fiancé, not to my therapist, not even to Usher, who dragged me into that hellhole to begin with. I'm only writing it now because maybe someone else will read it and know to turn back if they ever see a red door in an alleyway glowing under a single flickering bulb. It was 3 nights before my wedding. Usher, my best friend since middle school, wouldn't shut up about one last wild night before I signed my soul away, as he put it. I wasn't in the mood. My head was spinning with vows, flower arrangements, and whether I'd remember to finalize the damn DJ. But Usher was relentless. "Just trust me, D," he said, grinning like an idiot, tossing his 12th beer can out the passenger window as I drove. "I read about this place on Reddit. It has the most beautiful girls." I sighed. I don't want to end up in some grimy strip club, dude. He smirked. "Strip clubs are for amateurs. This is something else. Think Eyes Wide Shut meets Tokyo Drift." I should have turned the car around right then. We parked in a forgotten part of the city. Empty warehouses, graffiti-covered walls, and dumpsters spilling over. Usher led me through a narrow alley, past a homeless guy muttering to himself. Then he knocked 3 times on a rust-colored steel door. A slit opened, and a man's eye peered through. Usher leaned in and whispered something I didn't catch. The door creaked open. Concrete steps led us down into a world I still don't fully understand. Red light flooded the stairwell. Bass-heavy music throbbed from below, a deep, vibrating pulse that made the walls tremble. At the bottom, a thick black curtain parted into a nightclub straight out of a dream, or a nightmare. Everything was crimson. Velvet walls, low-hanging chandeliers, smoke curling through the air. The women were already circling before we found the bar. They were stunning. Too stunning. Long legs, glossy lips, fierce eyes. But something still felt off. Their arms were too veined, and their smiles didn't quite reach their eyes. One of them brushed against me. Her voice was so squeaky. Honestly, she gave me the creeps. "You look tense, baby," she purred, fingers trailing my chest. "Let me help with that." I pulled back. I'm good, thanks." Usher laughed, already half drunk, letting one of them press against him. "Relax, man, this is your party!" Every nerve in my body screamed run. The place didn't smell like alcohol or perfume. It smelled like sweat, bleach, and something metallic. Blood, maybe. I tried to leave. The same door we entered was gone, or disguised. The hallway led to nothing but more velvet walls and mirrors that distorted our reflections. I turned to Usher. "We need to..." But he was gone. Panic gripped me. I pushed through the crowd, the music louder now, like it was blasting inside my skull. Red strobes flashed, faces warped in the light.
One of the hostesses grabbed my wrist. Her grip was so tight that it bruised.
Don't be rude.
She hissed. I yanked free and ran. Every turn led deeper into the club. No signs, no windows, just corridors of red lights and walls. I was thinking of calling the cops when I heard Usher's scream close by.
Dylan, help!
His voice was hoarse. I sprinted toward it, crashing into walls, slipping on God knows what. I found him in a side room. It had dim lights and a couch. Usher was pinned on it by two women. One had a syringe in her hand. The other was laughing at him. I didn't think. I just grabbed the nearest thing, a champagne bottle, and shattered it against the wall.
Get the hell off him!
I roared. They turned, and their eyes, cold, reptilian, locked onto mine. I swung the jagged glass, catching one across the face. The woman let out a scream in pain, and it didn't seem to be her voice. She sounded like a man. The others lunged at me. We hit the floor hard, grappling. I stabbed blindly, glass tearing flesh. I didn't know how many times I hit the other man before he stopped moving. Usher was dazed, drooling, pupils huge. "Come on, man," I begged, dragging him to his feet. We ran. No plan, just ran. I think I kicked through a wall panel, or maybe a door someone forgot to lock. We stumbled into a boiler room, then another stairwell. The music faded behind us. My lungs burned. My shirt was torn and blood-soaked. Finally, we saw a metal door and shoved it open. We spilled into the alley, gasping. Cold air never felt so good. Usher collapsed, coughing. I dropped beside him, my hands shaking. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, he looked at me, eyes wide and terrified.
Dee, what the hell was that place?
I didn't answer. I couldn't. When I got home, I told my fiancée I'd gotten mugged. She wanted to call the police. I said it wasn't worth it. I wasn't lying. Not really. Because what would I even tell them? Hey, officers, I got lured into an underground club run by men disguised as women who trap drunk guys and do terrible things to them. Oh, and I stabbed one with a champagne bottle. No, I don't have an address. Who would believe me? The next morning, Usher came over with bruises on his neck and guilt all over his face. "I'm sorry, man," he whispered. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." I nodded. We never talk about this again. Ever. And we didn't. I got married 3 days later, smiled through the photos, kissed my wife, danced to Can't Help Falling in Love. But every now and then, when I hear bass in the distance, feel red light behind my eyelids, or pass a dark alley with a steel door, I wonder if someone else is being pulled down those steps, and whether they'll make it out. Reagan had always been the popular girl in our school, flaunting her gorgeous blonde hair and attractive smile. Everyone called her Barbie, and she wore the title like a crown. We were both co-captains of the cheer squad, which meant she saw me as a threat and tried to make my life hell whenever she could. She outperformed me at many things, but what drove her insane was my naturally clear skin and lean build. Something she couldn't get without spending a ton of money. So, when she disappeared for 2 weeks over winter break, the rumors started right away. Barbie Reagan had gotten plastic surgery, and the results were going to blow everyone's minds. But when Reagan stepped into homeroom that morning, she looked like she was trying to disappear, with those massive sunglasses taking up half her face, a medical mask covering her nose and mouth, and her blonde hair swept forward. She moved all stiff and awkward, like she was sore all over. Things spiraled when one of the teachers told her to take off her glasses and mask. Reagan's whole body went rigid. She said she had a doctor's note, but when the teachers asked to show her the note, she sat confused. Reagan was fumbling in her bag when another student, Tyler, burst out laughing from the back. He made fun of her in front of the entire class. Reagan just stood there frozen. Even with those huge sunglasses on, I could tell she was freaking out.
By lunch, everyone was calling her Botched Barbie. Someone had made a TikTok comparing her old cheer photos to pictures of botched plastic surgeries. Within an hour, there were dozens of them. I'm not gonna lie, part of me liked it. After all the years she spent making other girls cry, it honestly felt like karma was finally catching up to her. By the time practice rolled around, Reagan was nowhere to be seen. Coach Stevens said she'd gone home sick. I ended up staying late, trying to nail down a new routine. I finished around 5:30 when the entire school premises had gone empty. I was in the shower when I heard the locker room door slam, hard enough that the sound echoed off the tiles.
Hello?
I called out, shutting off the water. But all I could hear was water dripping and the hum of overhead lights. I grabbed my towel and stepped out. Suddenly, I heard this familiar voice from a distance. It was Reagan.
Having fun over someone's misery, are we, Natalia?
She stepped out from behind a row of lockers, still wearing those sunglasses and that mask.
Reagan? You all made my life a joke.
My stomach dropped.
Reagan, I didn't mean...
She was shaking, her hands clenched into fists. The overhead light flickered, and I could see she was crying behind those sunglasses. I took a step forward, but stopped right there. Reagan suddenly removed her sunglasses, and I almost screamed. Her eyes were just all wrong. They were red and puffy, like a blood vessel inside her head had popped. She still had that mask on, though.
I wouldn't have had to do it if you weren't standing here, flaunting that perfect skin.
The surgeon said I could have it, and that's all I wanted.
She yanked the mask down, and I was horrified. Her entire face was covered in rashes and stitch marks. In some places, her skin was coming off, revealing fresh wounds. Her nose was so wrong that I could barely tell it was Reagan. Her lips were swollen like 1,000 bees stung her. She began walking toward me with pure hatred.
Reagan, I'm sorry.
Everyone's laughing at me because of you.
I didn't notice all this time Reagan was holding a scissor in her hand.
Reagan, put those down. The boys say I look like a monster now. That I should disappear. That no one will ever love me looking like this. So if I'm a monster, I might as well act like one.
She came at me fast, and I barely managed to dodge. The scissors slammed into the locker where my head had just been.
Reagan, stop!
Her scarred face twisted with rage. I grabbed my gym bag and swung it at her. It hit her in the side and made her stumble. I ran, but the locker room was too small. She was right behind me, breathing hard, the scissors clicking together.
If I can't be pretty, neither can you!
I made it to the door, but it was locked. She grabbed my hair and yanked me backward. She dragged me down, and I saw the scissors coming up, aimed at my face. I threw my arm up, and the blade went straight through my forearm. I felt it slice through my skin and muscle as the warm blood poured out fast. When the pain hit, I screamed, but I needed to get away before she killed me. I elbowed her in the eye, and she fell to the ground in pain. I didn't wait. I ran, leaving a trail of blood behind me. Coach Stevens found me in the hallway, sobbing and bleeding everywhere, and called 911. Cops showed up with the paramedics. They found Reg, and still in the locker room, sitting on the floor with those scissors in her lap, rocking back and forth, and whispering to herself about being pretty. I'm here at the hospital now, waiting for them to finish stitching up my arm. The doctor said I was lucky. Another inch and she would have hit an artery. It took 23 stitches. The cops said Reagan is being taken to a psychiatric hospital. Her lawyers will probably claim she had a psychotic break from the bullying and botched surgeries. Maybe she wasn't in her right mind, but I know it wasn't just her to blame. We too made fun of her without thinking how that would affect her. I just hope she gets the help she needs. And to those who think plastic surgery is the way to be the better version of yourself, just think it through. Because there are so many fraud surgeons who ruin lives of people in the name of making them beautiful.
It was Kara's idea to rent the Airbnb for my bachelorette trip.
Rustic, private, spooky in a fun way.
She said, flipping her phone around to show me the cottage. She wasn't wrong. Whitewashed walls, creaky floorboards, surrounded by mountains. Total silence, no cell service, a fireplace and a clawfoot tub. The perfect place to pop champagne and make stupid toasts. Jess brought the booze. Leela brought the matching robes. Kara made everyone party favors with mini candles and hangover kits. I brought nothing but nerves and a full heart. They were my best friends, my girls. I'd known Leela since college, Jess since high school, and Kara was my maid of honor, my future sister-in-law. She and Nate, my fiancé, had grown up like twins. If I could go back and stop us from lighting those candles, I would. But curiosity mixed with alcohol makes people stupid, and we were idiotic. We found the photo in the hallway upstairs, tucked behind a dusty vase on a shelf, black and white, faded. A girl, maybe 16 or 17, staring dead on at the camera, no smile. Beneath the frame, a tiny plaque read, Emily Reese, 1974 to 1991. Taken too soon, forever watching over the home she loved. Jess was the one who said it first.
We should invite her to the party.
I laughed.
Invite a ghost? Come on, Mia. It's your last night of freedom. Let's get weird.
We turned off the lights. Only the fireplace and the candles showered light. Leela was already arranging chairs on the coffee table. Kara rolled her eyes but played along. Jess grabbed an empty wine glass and flipped it upside down in the middle.
Spirit board style. Everyone, put a finger on the glass.
She said. We giggled like idiots. The wine dulled everything. Fear, judgment, and sanity.
Emily?
Jess began, her voice slow and theatrical.
If you're here, come party with us.
Nothing happened at first. I giggled, saying we were being so stupid. But Jess shushed me and told everyone to concentrate. We stayed like that for maybe 10 minutes, just staring at the flickering candlelight and our heavy breathing. Jess continued saying,
Emily? We're inviting you to join us. Come, Emily.
Then suddenly, the glass moved. We all jerked our hands away.
Who pushed it?
Leela asked. No one answered. The glass kept sliding, slow and deliberate. Across the wooden table, it spelled B-R-I-D-E. We all looked at each other.
That's you.
Kara whispered to me. That's when Jess went still, completely still.
Jess?
Leela poked her shoulder. She didn't blink. Then, snap. Her head jerked sideways so hard we all flinched. When she lifted her face up, we were all horrified. There was someone else's face contracting from hers. It looked like straight out of a horror movie. Even when she spoke, it wasn't Jess's voice.
You're all liars.
She said in this demonic, heavy voice. We froze.
Okay. Jess, cut the crap.
Kara said. But Jess just started laughing. Her eyes rolled back. Her head was tilted at an impossible angle. Her voice was half whisper, half growl.
Let's play a game. Secrets. Jess, this isn't funny.
I said, but she was unbothered. Suddenly, she pointed at Leela.
You stole money from the bride's wallet last spring. Told her it fell out in the car. Liar. Liar.
Leela went pale.
What the hell? How do you...
Jess pointed again.
Kara tried on the dress when Mia was out. Oh, she twirled in it, looked in the mirror, said she wore it better.
Kara's jaw clenched.
You're drunk. Stop this madness.
Leela got up to turn on the lights when Jess, or whoever it was, screamed.
Dear bride, do you know your best friend Lyra slept with your groom the night you were away. You can ask Kara.
The room exploded. I stood up so fast I knocked over a candle. Kara snapped.
You're making this up! You know Jess. She lies when she's drinking.
But Jess leaned forward, smiling like a possessed doll. The face in her face was trying so bad to come out, but it couldn't. She looked right into my eyes and whispered,
Remember the scar on your groom's thigh? Lyra kissed it.
Kara gasped. I couldn't breathe.
You're insane.
Leela said, but her face was white.
She's faking it.
Jess cackled, crawling backward, limbs jerking in ways they shouldn't.
She smiles at you. She stabs you in the back.
I snapped. I threw my wine glass.
Are these all true?
Kara didn't answer. Leela was hiding her face in her palm, but the trauma didn't end there. Jess got up, walked to the wall, and started banging her head on the hard concrete. She was laughing and hitting her head like a maniac. Blood was staining the wall, but she didn't stop. We all tried to pull her away, but she was stronger than all of us. Leela turned on the lights, and Jess fainted on the floor. We called 911. When they pulled her out, Jess's body was stiff. Kara and Leela couldn't even look at me in the eyes. We never spoke again after that. Kara flew home the next day and blocked us all. Leela tried to explain and left voicemails I never answered. I would rather not hear her say the words. I could see it in her face that night. 2 days later, I canceled the wedding. My ex-fiancé Nate begged me, swore nothing happened. He said Leela was like a sister to him, but he couldn't explain how Jess, possessed or not, knew about that scar. I left him standing in the rain with the ring in his hand. Sometimes I still see Jess. She's fine now, physically, but she won't talk about that night. She says she remembers nothing after the seance. The doctors said it was dissociative fugue, brought on by stress and alcohol. But I know better. Because of the farmhouse, it's off Airbnb now. The listing disappeared 2 days after we left.